Hey.
Hi, y'all. Welcome to the ladies' room. This is our second show, and we are amped up and so excited about this show. How y'all doing, ladies?
Fantastic. No complaints.
I'm great.
I'm great. Doing well. Blessed.
So today, before we get into the show, I want you all to spend a little bit of time just introducing yourselves. Um, we don't have any viewers right this moment, but
There it is.
That's that sound again.
Right.
sound
Oh Lord.
weird. I last weekend and I thought that was somebody vacuuming in your house because you were
I
the
did
only one.
too. I was all right with it. I was like, go for cleanliness. That's right.
Nope, not over here. I was in silence for a change.
Wow. Okay, I'm about to tag us on Facebook, get some people over on the channel. But I do want you guys to just like introduce yourselves. Tag us on. Um, tell people a little bit about you, like what you're all about, where you're from, anything you want people to know.
Oh, me. Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
I'm from the South because I don't know if I should give my whole location. I'm a nanny. I'm married to a Black man. I'm a Black woman. I've been natural maybe 5 years now, maybe 6, somewhere around that time. Let me think. I'm a nanny. I weight lift. I am deadlifting 275. So,
Wow.
I'm almost
Oh,
up
I
there.
saw you on Facebook.
Yes. Women should live heavy. It's good for us, But that's about it. I'm not really excited.
All right. All right. And okay, so what else? What else would you like people to know? Like what are some of your other hobbies? Any hobbies?
I like to go hiking. I think the South is such a beautiful place with all this greenery. You'd be surprised what is just around the corner. Last week-ish, I took my father and my brother and my husband because they hate when I go hiking by myself. Of course, they give me the story, Black people don't, So I took them with me and we did about 4 miles and we went past an old brick factory that Black people had built. Of course, we'll never get no reparations, but that's neither here nor there. But it was interesting. I like doing that kind of stuff, hiking and just seeing different historical monuments. So
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And what about you, Cannon?
I am originally from Chicago, born and raised, South Side. I am currently based out of Atlanta. I've been here for the past 11 years. I am married. I have 4 children, 2 bio, 2 bonus. Fun fact about me, I have a 19-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. Definitely tripping, not making good choices, but we're here now. I have a cat and a dog, so I'm one of those kind of families. What else? At my regular day job, I have been there for the past 14 years, which I know in millennial terms is like kind of unheard of. So that's a little bit about me. And I guess that's it for now.
Cannon, the lady who has it all. Same thing with Rhonda. I feel like y'all got it all. Y'all got family, you got careers, you got hobbies, you have businesses on the side.
Yeah, all I hear is like a lot of work. Like that's what I hear. Like,
having it all means I got somebody to do all that. That's what having it all means.
Yeah.
I gotta cook.
Right.
My family
Exactly.
business.
Yes.
I got a nanny to nanny,
A
somebody
dog
else.
walker.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
You do it all. You do it all.
Yep.
Yep.
And you manage and you all do well. Right? Y'all do well. Y'all do well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we do well at presenting that, so that's good.
The easy part is
I love it.
There you go.
I'm telling you.
All right. And Mrs. Jovo, to you. What about you?
Hey, everybody. I'm Mrs. Jovo. Jovo to my friends and family. I grew up and was born and raised in Middle Georgia, or as I like to call it, people claim that Atlanta, Georgia is Georgia. I grew up in Georgia, Jawga. Yep, Middle Georgia, all my life. I've been in the Atlanta area probably for around, ooh, probably around 10 years now, 10, 11 years. I have one beautiful daughter who is about to turn 10 years old. I'm excited about that. Um, she is, I always tell people that me and my husband prayed for an answer, and God sent us Janae. That's my daughter.
Aw.
So love her to death. I have been married for 17 interesting, beautiful, exciting, mind blowing, interesting. Did I say interesting? Interesting years to a wonderful man, to my soulmate, to my best friend. Love him to death. I am a certified addictions counselor. I have been for probably the last 12, 13 years. I work with individuals who are suffering with mental health symptoms as well as substance use addiction, abuse, dependency, all of the above. And I absolutely love my job. So that's a little bit about me. Some of my hobbies include I love to craft, I love to hang out with my daughter, I love to eat good food. I love to cook good food, and I just love out with my friends and family and doing stuff like this. This is my thing. So that's a little bit about me. So hello to everybody. Excited, excited, excited.
I just
It's your
love
turn,
y'all.
Ashley.
I just love y'all, ladies. Well, okay, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. Y'all know I can talk, but basically, I am born and raised on the west side of Chicago. I was raised by a huge family, by a village. Specifically, my grandmother raised me, my grandmother and my grandfather up until he passed away when I was very young. And, I have a twin sister, I have a couple brothers, I have another sister. My dad is in my life, but my mom, my biological mom, passed away when I was just a tiny baby. But I have a very strong family. My grandmother has passed away as well. And obviously, I said my grandfather, but I still have aunts and uncles and cousins, and they're a huge part of my life. I'm very much all about family. And I'm a teacher. I love children. I'm very passionate about helping children that look like us reach their full potential. I've been a teacher for over 10 years. And well, I've been a teacher for 10 years, but in education in some capacity for a little over 10 years. And I'm also a licensed administrator. Hopefully, I will eventually get into an administrative role. And I love many things. I like to make my own soaps. It's one of my hobbies. I just got into building like floor plans. That's so random. I don't tell people that because I really just started. I just started building. I have like this deep interest for like interior design. And so I have been learning, teaching myself how to build like what do you call it, renderings of houses. And so I've been doing that. That's like a hobby of mine. I love to horseback ride a few times a year. Not much. I'm in Chicago, so I can't do it much. But sand, water, sun, that's my thing. And I'm a Christian. I am a single woman and I don't have kids, but perhaps one day I will. So, and I have this podcast. I also have a ministry called True Virtue Ministry. You all can check that out on Facebook, where I try to help and support other young women like myself in their Christian walk. So that's a little bit about me. So, ladies, I am so excited to get started. I'm going to jump right in with our first topic. Y'all doing all right?
Yes, yes,
All
yes,
right.
yes.
So I'm going to jump right in with our first topic, and it's all about a young woman who has lost her life, Miya Marcano, to a very violent circumstance. And the question about that is is she a victim of male entitlement and male ego? or did what she experienced prove to be just another unfortunate case of violence? Okay. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to share the story, Mia's story with you guys. Miya is a young 19-year-old woman who went missing. She was missing for a short period of time, but during the time she was missing, her family suspected that the maintenance guy that worked at her apartment facility had something to do with her disappearance. Apparently, he had been showing some obsessiveness about Miya and made some advances to her that she declined. They found her body, I think, just a day or two ago, and the police believe that the maintenance man may have had something to do with it, and her family is adamant that he killed her because she had been rejecting his advances. Okay, so that's a little bit about the story. I am actually going to copy and paste a link to the story in our live chat. But ladies, I want to hear from you all. Is she a victim of male ego and or male entitlement? Kenny, you want to go first, or
I can absolutely go first.
okay?
I think that the facts bear out that 1 in 3 women experience some form of abuse from a domestic partner or in a domestic situation. And that's just the reality of the situation. It is a problem that is not just an issue in the United States, but it is worldwide. It is a worldwide issue. I think that culturally across the world, we have an issue with the way that we deal with, view, and treat women. And that's just the women are treated so many times as property. And a lot of men do feel entitled to women. One of the things that and it's always it's reinforced, like it's reinforced throughout our entire society. Like one of the things that always sticks out to me, or that was very jarring to me a few years ago. I don't know how many people saw the Tyler Perry movie Temptation. And one of the things that stuck out to me in that film was the scene where they were on the airplane and he is like, you know, he's coming on to her and she's telling him no, right? But he continues to pursue anyway. And she never tells him, okay. And he just does what he's going to do. And then the next scene, it shows how upset she is, right? And she was like, I don't want to talk to you, you know, so it had every marking looking at it to be like, that was sexual assault. But that's not the way that the movie even handled it. And I think that that is very indicative of our culture and our society. Like it's almost like we feel like that type of thing is romanticized, or like that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, oh, she said no, but she don't really mean no. Let me keep doing, you know. And it's these and it's these things. So when you think about in certain other communities and things like that, it's still common practice culturally to like beat your wife. You know, like some cultures, they have like a special room where they go and like beat their wives. Like even if we talk about some of the topics of conversation that we've seen recently here, we really having a conversation on domestic discipline and all of this silly stuff. Like it's okay to, you know, basically discipline a grown lady. Like she's property. Like that's the way we're treated in every single way. And one of the things that's I would always immediately, I would have a visceral reaction immediately whenever we have the conversation related to women smiling, but especially Black women, right? You're not smiling at it. And I would have a visceral reaction to it because I distinctly remember even prepubescent, but especially coming into puberty, right? It could be very dangerous or feel very uncomfortable to invite certain male attention. And a lot of it is uninvited. So I remember walking home from school, having random men hanging out the car, groups of men, boys hanging out the car, like cat calling and making you feel very uncomfortable, blocking your path so you can't get past, following you home, right? Why you like, no, thank you. And they're still following you, right? That's scary. So it's like you learn from, you like, I don't want to invite none of that attention. And a lot of times the only way to get it to stop is to tie yourself to a man. Oh no, I have a boyfriend. Like it can't just be no. It has to be like, oh, I'm claimed by somebody else. So respect him. You ain't gonna respect me, but respect him. And then it's like, even if that works, but it is absolutely just this sense of entitlement. I think that that's what an incel community comes from. Like if you look at some of the things that they say, it is a sense of entitlement. Like I am entitled to having you. Like, what do you mean I can't? Like, no, I have to be able to have you. So I think that it's a very prevalent issue. And it's sad to say that we don't attack it that way or treat it that way or talk about it that way. We don't even track numbers in that way about those types of domestic incidents. Like we don't have it like tracked out. It's just like kind of lumped into everything else. It's really an epidemic, and we really have to do something about it.
I want to double down on that because I've heard conversations on YouTube about this idea of street harassment and male entitlement before, and people who are just very passionate about saying it doesn't exist, refuse to acknowledge the things, the experiences that you just talked about, which are very common. And I think that, for instance, maybe it's the case that in some places this doesn't happen, but like you said, you were raised in Chicago. I was raised in Chicago. It's a real thing. I was watching the show, the La Peep Network, and Anton and Courtney were just adamant that it's not real. Like that don't happen. Who does that? And I wanted to call in, and just be like, wait a minute, what do you mean it doesn't happen? I have experienced this. I watched another show a long time ago, and I really liked the show. It featured a bunch of men. I'm going to probably find it and share it on here, but there were a bunch of Black men on the show who were having very interesting conversation, and they talked about street harassment. Of the 5 or 6 gentlemen on the show, there was one guy who was really speaking up against street harassment. And he was like, no, like this is real. My wife has done it. My wife has gone through this and I've seen it and I don't like it. And the other guys were like, chill out, dude, chill out. Man, you getting real emotional about this. And I'm like, this is real. People act like it doesn't happen. I have numerous experiences from when I was growing up where I was insulted, called a name. I was walking down the street one time and a boy ran up to me from all the way down the street, and hit me on my butt. And I was fully clothed, and that's another thing. A lot of people think that you must be dressed in a certain way to get that type of attention, but that's not true, and it's still happening. I drive now. When I was younger, I wasn't driving. So I was on the bus, going to and here, going from one place to another. And that's when you experience it the most, right? And so as an adult woman, one time I like parked my car someplace to take the train downtown, and I couldn't wait to get back in my car because I'm like, oh my God. And for a couple hours out of my day, I felt how I used to feel when I was a young girl walking down the street. It's very real. And there are people who try to act like it doesn't exist. And I'm always like, okay, well, maybe where you from, it didn't happen. Maybe in Tennessee. I thought, okay, maybe this is like a Chicago thing, maybe it don't happen down in the South, but this is real. Like I have been called out of my name. I've been insulted physically, like, oh, he like you, until you say no. Then once you say no, then all the names start to come out. I have seen it. Taps on the butt, like and you could be fully clothed and it's like following you, and guys do that, not to make an excuse, but it does seem like they do it not really understanding that it feels like harassment. They think it's fun, they think it's cute, um they think you,
Because of that Tyler Perry movie and ones like it.
but it's like that shows that people need to be taught, girls and boys as they're growing up need to be taught what's okay. And the angle that a lot of people take is that, well, there are women who like it, and that hurts me because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not one of them. So me and women like me
Exactly.
have to be subject to this because in your mind somebody likes it. I think it's absurd, but I want to hear what you guys have to say as well. Javonda.
Well, let me just say this. Yeah, I'm like you on that. Yeah, some women might like it, but I don't like it. And when I read this story, I read it twice. And whenever I see stories like this, I think about my nieces. I have three older nieces, and I have one niece that just became a teenager, and I have a daughter. And I just think about some of the experiences that I saw growing up, where I grew up, growing up, the little time I spent in my parents' house. And I saw a lot, and I have experienced a lot, and I've experienced what you're talking about. I think there needs to be, I think we need to counter this idea that women are property to men, like we belong to them, like we can, we're in a situation where he can do that, or this whole, it's it's in his nature. It ain't nothing natural about being that aggressive towards somebody. It's not. It's not. Um, I can't tell you how many people that I have counseled, um, women who feel like because they were living a certain way, oh, this gave this person the green light to do this to me. There's nothing natural about this behavior. It's not, and that's what it is. It's a behavior. It's aggressiveness, and let's just call it what it is. It's violence against women. That's what it is. But in this society, we've always had a problem talking about violence against women. We really have. We've always had a problem with that. It's always been she was either asking for it because of how she was dressed and presenting herself, or she didn't do what he wanted her to do, so she was asking for it. No woman asks for this. None of them do. It is definitely entitlement. I think that in this situation, I would be curious to sit down with him and do kind of an assessment to see where you are mentally. But I think that it's definitely an act of violence. I think that it's entitlement. I think that it is violence against women. That's what it is. And I think that it's important for us to start calling this what it is. I'm having conversations with the young women in my family. No man, no one should put their hands on you when you don't want their hands on you. Period. Really similar to what Cannon was talking about last week with her daughter. If she doesn't want a hug, guess what? Stop forcing it. If she said no the first time, she's probably gonna say no again. That's exactly what it is. It's no. You know. And I like what Cannon said about the smiling, because I know me and her have kind of, I think it was her. We did have sort of a back and forth, not knowing where, the place that she was coming from with that. And now I see it. I can obviously say that I see it, because when you've been in a situation where you were supposed to be protected and you were not, and there's a lot of black women who, black girls who are now black women, we all got that one thing in common, where someone, they touched us inappropriately, or they presented themselves inappropriately to us, or even something worse than that. So for me, it is entitlement. It's this idea that because we're women, we're supposed to be fragile and we're supposed to be property, then okay, you know, you ask me out on a date, or you ask to, hug me or give me a kiss, or you're advancing that way to do that. or you're sexualizing me and I'm just walking down the street minding my own business or just being myself. It's this sense of entitlement that I am supposed to just automatically curve to you, and because I want that attention, I'm supposed to just, yeah, it's okay. And it's not okay. It's not okay. That is exactly what it is. It is an act of violence. It is entitlement. It is assault against women. Those are my thoughts about it.
Thank you. And Mrs. Understanding, what do you think?
First, because I looked up these stories and I want to give a big shout out to my husband and my family because I was talking to my brother about it and we were raised very sheltered. Like I'm talking about, you can't leave the neighborhood. We're going to church Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So a lot of things I see on the news, I was like, oh, that's what's going on out in the world. But I didn't realize it was so frequent, or that this was a real reality for a lot of women because I've been with the same man for a long time. So I don't really do much, go nowhere without him. We moved together as a unit. So, he's 6'3". Ain't nobody really trying to, push up on him. We don't really have no problems when we go out. But even another story that you mentioned, it threw me for a loop because she was with her man. But nevertheless, I do think it's male entitlement. I think it's kind of like racism. Like just because the laws change doesn't mean the attitude is going to change at 12:05 on the next business day. Women were taking barbiturates back in the day as a sedative to make sure they can get sleep because they were overworked throughout the day. And that was where a lot of marital night stealing is what I'll call it happened. And men felt entitled to their wives, even if she wasn't conscious. So this isn't something that was 300 years
It was legal. Ago. In some places it still is.
Because once you're married, you belong to your husband. Who cares if you sleep or you ain't even conscious, whatever. Nevertheless, but this isn't something that just happened 300 years ago. This happened 50, 60 years ago. And then I don't know if you guys know about Glendon Cameron. Have you guys heard about him? Okay, he's a recent Black YouTuber who came out and was talking about how he kept getting tricked by children and falling in love. I
saw that today. I didn't know his name.
He kept talking about how these little girls were tricking him, even though he would go and look up at their profile and say, oh, if they had good parents, I couldn't mess with them because the parents are going to call me. So it's interesting to me because he tried to justify it with, oh, it's natural. But even when it was natural, they would sit with the parents. They would talk about how you're going to marry my daughter, all this. You sneaking around, taking somebody's daughter, robbing the cradle. That's not natural. That's not how things were done back in the day, even when women were getting married at 16. That's not how it was going on, and it was amazing because he put this video out years ago. We ain't heard nothing about it until recently when men are trying to call him to the light. But it surprises me how entitled he felt that whole time, how he bragged about how I never got caught. And, I do it this way so I don't get caught. So all these girls that have been assaulted by him, they're just walking around with this burden. And it's just amazing to me because he felt entitled to this. And the men, not to say it's just men watching his podcast or even subscribing to him, they endorse it. And he's not the only one. There have been comedians who made jokes about taking, body parts, taking it from us when we say no. Men still join and ha 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 right along with them. They still got followers, subscribers. So it's an entitlement. And like I said, big kudos to my family because I did not know it was this serious at all.
Yeah, it's very real. And it's saddening to me just because I experienced it. And I just remember, you got to have certain defenses and techniques, right, to avoid it. Of course, they tell you walk across the street. And my whole thing has always been, and I do it to this day, even just smile, because you don't want nobody to shoot you or cuss you out, call you out your name. Now, there's a way.
That's not always enough either. They take that as an invitation. We'll follow you.
Yeah, I know. And so that's what I'm saying. Like I was going to say as well, like sometimes you have to put your big girl panties on and say no. But
the thing is,
I have to, I mean, I'm not going to be mean to anybody as long as they're not mean to me. But, I'm always like smile and keep it moving.
But the thing is just like you said, right? How often are we having these conversations about all the tactics and techniques and things you have to do to try to defend yourself and to be okay? What kind of conversations are we having with boys and men about how to treat women? Right? About how they are not, we're not. Like, that's what I'm like. On the one hand, this is natural in you. Go do whatever.
Right.
And then the girls be like, that's what I was saying even when we were having last week when we were talking about the sexual liberation conversation and things like that. That goes back to that same thing where it's like the expectation is that the boys are going to pursue and they're going to come after you. And that's just freely okay. Like, nobody's telling the boys, like, no, this is what consent looks like. This is how you should treat this person like a human, right? Instead, we're telling the girls about all the tactics that they need to employ to try to circumvent all of these things that we're telling boys it's okay to do.
Yeah.
Or not even saying it's okay, just doing nothing when they do it.
Right.
Like you said, Ashley, we went to Six Flags. We went to Fright Night. We got memberships. But we went recently, and it was a young lady just walking with her homegirls. 2 little boys just ran up, slapped them on the butt, took off running. Nobody stopped them. We're in line for a roller coaster, so it's not like we're going to jump out of line, but security there, they didn't stop them. It was all hee hee ha ha ha. Even the girls laughed it off, but that's the first step. We just keep on going past that. You don't have to have consent to touch my body now at 12. What you needed at 22 for?
Yeah, and I think that this conversation has come up, in different communities on social media that I'm a part of, and different groups that I'm a part of, and the men get very, very defensive. And I understand why. I think this is a hard conversation to have because most men don't think consciously, doing anything against a woman's body or her or violating her right to say yes or no is okay. Most men don't think that's okay, right? And I think a lot of times as they get older, they may not have done, they don't do things that they maybe did when they were younger. But the problem is that it's still kind of just swept under the rug and assumed to be something boys do when it just needs to be corrected.
But men too. I have been grabbed as an adult woman by grown men.
I have.
It's okay.
Walking through the mall, going places. I've literally had my whole arm grabbed by a stranger.
And so for some men, they never learned that. And that's not an excuse. But for some reason, like year after year, we're going and people are not, teaching young boys at an early age, okay, this is what's appropriate and this is not. And then they become grown men who feel entitled to certain things, like for instance, as a teacher, I've had to talk to boys about how they show their affection. And I've had to talk to girls too, and I say, it's fine to like somebody. I remember one time there was a little boy, he had autism. Okay. Oh my God. He's just the smartest and sweetest boy. And he liked a girl in the classroom. They were only in 2nd grade. This is when I taught 2nd grade. And he vocalized that he liked the girl. And the girl was like, he said he liked me. Ew. Like, she flipped out. And I said, it's okay for him to like you. It's okay. Like, he likes you like he likes. I mean, of course, he had like a little crush on her. But I wanted him to feel comfortable vocalizing in a respectful way that he likes a woman. And I wanted to show her too, like, even if you don't like him, you can be kind and decline, so we have to teach on both sides. But boys don't get that type of instruction, and girls don't get the type of instruction either that they probably need when it comes to certain things. But it's like now we have adults who are getting into these sticky situations and everybody's pointing the finger. And it's like, man, if only we had taught, okay, attraction is fine, but this is how you show your attraction and this is how you don't show your attraction. This is violating, and this is okay. This is mature or appropriate.
But I think it's also important to point out that a lot of it is not just like strangers, right? Just like Raven brought up, a lot of it is within the confines of relationships that these boundaries are still being crossed. And it's that's like when you look at all the scenarios and all the different men who take out their whole families and then themselves, right? It's that like I own you, like I own all of these things, you all belong to me, and I can do whatever I want to do. Even when you look at like honor killing, right, and things like that, that is family. You know what I mean? Like that's not from strangers. So it's just a deep seated disrespect and non-respecting of humanity of girls. Like even when you look at cultures that have like what's the word I'm looking for? FGM. Google that, look that up. It all comes from a place of you are not meant to enjoy anything. You are only meant to do this thing. So I'm going to go out of my way to physically hinder you from being able to do it. And it's seen as a badge of honor in the culture and in society to do so. Right?
It surprised me how many black men were saying that wasn't a big deal. And I'm like, what?
I'm not surprised. I mean, the thing is that people,
don't humanize what?
What I was gonna say is I'm never surprised when people have a difficulty empathizing, right, or understanding things that don't affect them directly. So that doesn't surprise me, because if that's not their experience and it's not something that would affect them, then they're like, well, whatever, So or really see much wrong with it. So I just think it's just important for us to address those deep-seated societal, norms. Like when we talk about those, that's why I'm so adamantly against like conforming to all of these strict gender roles and stuff like that. Like I just feel like it's all bottled up and enthralled into the same thing. And I feel like until we address some of those things, we're gonna keep running into the same issues because it's deeply ingrained, deeply.
And I want to point out, I've worked in the court system and in corrections off and on throughout my career. And the men that I've had to see that are either incarcerated, on probation, combination of both, for these types of behaviors, guess what? It's normally against someone that they've been dating, someone they've been married to, an ex-wife, a current wife. So it's not like we're calling them out saying, "Oh, you're just this creepy stranger in the night going around harassing women." That's not what it is. It's definitely entitlement, because there's no clear boundary set. I think in some relationships, I think it's important that we teach both boys and girls what are personal boundaries. What do boundaries look like? Social media and a lot of other things that we kind of are really crazy about has really pushed us away from setting really defined, clear boundaries with a lot of things in our life. My great grandmother used to tell me all the time, everybody don't need to know everything about you. You don't start day one and just, throw up and just give out your whole life story or what you have and what you don't have. You are to set some boundaries and some limits to what you allow, how you allow people in, and what you allow people to know about you. It is okay for you to say no. It is okay for you to be someone who, you don't like people to refer to you as certain things. I know I have a bad habit of, saying, "Hey sis," and I remember somebody recently called me out on that. Like, I don't like, when, you call me sis or queen or something like that. And instead of me saying, "Oh, you overreacting," I had to step back and I had to really like check me and say, you know what, that's their personal boundary. I don't know the story behind that. And it's none of my business to know the story behind that. Her preference is that I either call her by her name or don't call her anything at all. And I respect that. And I think that it's important that we teach kids that, because, I know for me, I just go ahead and put it out here on the table. When I was a little girl, self-esteem was a big issue for me. I wanted everybody to like me. So when you want everybody to like you, you start standing for everything and you start receiving everything. You start allowing everything. Well, when that happens, poor boundaries are set. And then people start thinking they can say and do whatever they want to do because you don't put limits to protect your own self. So why should I, have standards in how I'm treating you? And by all means, I'm not saying that okay, it's my fault how certain things happen to me or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. Or, with the story that we're talking about, is not this young lady's fault. But what I am saying is that we do need to counter some of these traditional, she's property. You can say this to girls. He's just playing with her. It's no big deal. It is a big deal. Boundaries are important. They are so important. I tell my clients all the time, boundaries save lives. Okay. And so I know for a fact, looking at situations that I've been involved in, that had I not set a boundary, guess what? Something worse could have happened. So I think I agree with Cannon wholeheartedly. I agree with a lot of what all of you all are saying, but I think too we just need to have this conversation about personal boundaries. It's so important because I think some of us kind of, it's some entitlement, men and women, but I think in terms of what we're discussing with
Mhm.
men, I think some of us are, with men, I think some of them think, oh, it's no big deal. They minimize and they normalize that behavior because when you do that you don't have to check yourself on certain things. See, when we normalize stuff and we think that it's okay, we don't have to check ourselves, And so then it continues. It continues, you
Yeah.
know. So
And
I
people,
really, I wanted to say that.
yeah, thank you, Yolanda. And people, I think men in particular get sick of hearing this discussion, but we keep having it because it's perpetual. It continues to go on and it's not being addressed. And this discussion is not to say that women and girls shouldn't be taught to carry themselves a certain way, but it is to say that
Right.
regardless of how someone looks or how she's dressed,
Hmm.
she does have the right to say no. And it's really in your best interest
Right.
as a young man, especially a young Black man, to take that no as a no. Um,
Hmm.
it's so
Absolutely.
ingrained. And I was actually, I don't know if he's watching now, but I was um, on like engaging with somebody on Facebook just some days ago where I I forgot the exact post, but basically, oh, I know, I remember what it was. It wasn't even on Facebook. It was in like a private message, and I mentioned, oh, you should come on the show, and he said something like, I think I may be able to. I forgot what he said, and but I was like, no, say yes. Um, and I forgot, and he's like, well, I'm not a woman. My no means no. And I was just like, really? I didn't even
Because
respond.
that's funny. What is that?
Yeah. So if a woman says no, her no doesn't really mean no. Like it was just absurd.
That's
And
our culture. That is our culture. Going
yeah,
back to the movie reference,
It
that is
is.
our culture. Her no doesn't
Yep.
really mean no.
Yep.
yeah, and there and like of course, and the
Yep.
excuse is always okay. Well, there are women who are like that. Yes, there are women who are like that. I remember in college there was this girl that I was out with, and she said that she's like, I said no, but I was just playing or something. Like she's like, but I didn't really mean no. I looked at her like, whoa, that's scary because when I say no, I mean no. And I want somebody to respect that, you know. But you will have women who are of that frame of mind. But every woman does not function that way. And it's not fair.
Right.
It's violating for any man to think I can deal with women this way because I know that there's somebody who is how I need them to be. There's somebody out there who her no doesn't mean no. So now when I continue to date, I'm
Mhm.
going, I see this girl, oh, she's saying no, but I'm gonna keep trying, or I'm
It's
gonna do this.
convenient.
Yeah, it's like they
It's a
don't believe.
convenient thing to believe.
Exactly. But it's like, come on, you can't be that silly. You know. But it's like the lack of acknowledging that this is the case.
But the thing is that think about it. Even if they are wrong, right, or different things like that, it goes back to, again, our society puts the onus on the woman. What is the first thing? Oh, why was she at your
Right.
house? Why did she have this on? Oh, why
Right.
was she, doing this or doing that? So it's like they have ingrained where they
Right.
understand that just the weight of it is going 9 times out of 10 end up being on a woman. And not saying that there aren't some women who take
Right.
advantage of certain
Right.
things, that there aren't women who have bad character or whatever. Not saying that, but I always found the interest in this idea that women by and large are just running out here to make false like claims about certain things, as though women are somehow generally like put through this beautiful process whenever they come forward and say anything, especially depending on who the man is. So I just always think that that's interesting, that on the one hand, we understand as a society that if this woman say anything, is the 9 times out of 10 is gonna go down to questioning all her behaviors. Okay, what she do? Who she slept with before? What she have on? What she say? What kind of text messages did she send? All of these things. But then on the flip side, we're saying like, oh, they just want to run out and just make up stories. For what? Like 9 times out of 10, like nobody's like just, oh my God, this happened to you. Like that's not generally how that works. It's usually a whole nother traumatizing situation. So that goes back to that too. It's worst case scenario. It's like, well, you caused this. Well, you came over here. Well, you made me think that this was look at what you got on. And it's things like that. So,
but you really don't have to be dressed provocatively to elicit certain, or I won't say elicit, but to experience certain.
No, that's the excuse.
Yeah, it's so. I just wanted to point that out. It's just so. It's
exactly.
Because this is a very real thing that we continue to
exactly.
Like I just thank God that I don't have to be on public transportation anymore, because it's scary. And some men, not to make an excuse, some men do not intend for it to be that way, but they don't know because we don't address it. We don't teach it.
Yeah, but like Dr. K says, she had to teach her son and her daughter about consent as soon as they became of age.
Right.
True. That's what we should be doing.
And we should, and like you said,
but a lot of people misunderstand consent too. So we need to educate ourselves as well.
Yeah, on both sides. But I like what you said, Cannon. Sorry about going, what women are told when they go forth. I was talking to my brother about Eldridge Cleaver. I'm not sure if you guys know who that is. He was a prominent Black Panther Party member. And, Black men cheered him on. Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, they endorsed him. This is all while they were knowing that he was assaulting women behind closed doors. And this was to master the art of assaulting women. He would just assault Black women. And they told the women, well, you know how he is. Why were you over there? Well, you were over there late at night. Or it was your duty as a revolutionary sister to give it up to a brother. So on one hand, sometimes I feel for Black men because it feels like we're assassinating their idols. But at the same time, it's like they assassinate themselves, and I can't hold male's reputation over the truth. Or, if we keep propping up these men knowing they were assaulters behind closed doors, what are we saying to the women that were assaulted and told, oh, well, you shouldn't have been over there, or you should be glad to give it up? We can't put the reputation of men in front of the truth, but I understand why men could feel like we're just tearing down everybody they love.
Yeah.
But how many of you all have heard of Samuel Little? How many of y'all have heard the name Samuel Little?
Not too far from here. Black.
Yes. Yeah. Do you know how many women he took out of here?
I think about 74.
It was 80 and possibly more. 80 that they know of.
Yeah.
He got away with it for a good, 40 years or something like that. And he even said himself, he knew that the women he was doing that to nobody cared about, and they were minority
They
women.
were Black women. Most of them were.
Yeah. And so it already, like, we have these throwaways, we had these ideas, like they are well aware a lot of times.
That's
like
why
even
when they say they don't know these men exist,
Right.
even Cameron made videos about how he was attracted and was sleeping with 15, 16, 17-year-old girls. So all these followers, how many people don't really know? I mean, this is the first time I heard about him, but he had thousands of followers. How can we keep saying, oh, I don't know no men like that? I ain't never heard no men like that. That can't always be the excuse.
They always say that. I'm like, I
know
men
on one
like
hand, I ain't never seen no men like that. But then on the other hand, I seen R. Kelly pulling up to the high school. Which one is it? Good Lord.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing, it shouldn't have to get Samuel Little. Most, that's usually, it's not usually that extreme, but it shouldn't have to be that extreme for people to speak up about it. I think that for men, especially Black men, because they're often falsely accused of sexual assault, it's hard for them to kind of just be real about it, because for some reason, I don't know if it feels like we're saying all men are this way, but we're not. But it is a problem, and that
I'll frame it the same way. I'll explain it to you perfectly. It's anything with privileges. I explain this to certain Black people all the time. I explain this to heterosexual people. I explain it all the time. It's like whenever you have a certain privilege, a lot of times you have blind spots to certain things. So it's the same way we talk about like white privilege, and we talk about structural racism and things like that, and how certain white people will act like they're totally confused about what we're talking about. Like, what do you mean? I'm not a bad person. I am not racist. I didn't do anything. It's the same thing. So whenever you try to address systemic and cultural like issues in our culture, like, no, this is the way we're behaving and this is the harm that it's causing. It's the same thing. Because they get certain, think about, how is that not a privilege, right? So anytime that you're able to be preferenced over another group, that is a privilege. Like, people always look at privileges as I'm getting something like, oh, I have this amazing life. No, that's not what that means. That just means you have one less barrier than somebody else. So whenever you preference over somebody else, that's a privilege. You don't want to lose those privileges. So of course you don't understand it and don't see it. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do to women. Like, why would I like what do you mean? Like, I'm a man. Like, why would I want to be equal for, like, why would I know? Like, I'm not going to give that up. That's where I feel like that comes from. That is that, but it's not conscious, right? Because I don't think white people do it consciously when they say, "Oh no, it's unconscious," right? Because it's like we unconsciously understand certain privileges that we have in society, but we don't want to address them because it makes us feel like if we address them, then we have to do something about it. We have to change it, and that's we know that will make us that privilege, so we don't want to. And that's how that goes.
Right. I think it really stems from we gotta challenge our thoughts in order for that behavior to change. We gotta be willing to challenge our thoughts on how we see men, how men see us. It's very important that we challenge the way we think about this. Like, and I'm listening to you all, and as I'm listening, and you guys are mentioning these different guys, and how they actually had the zeal and just and the gall to it. I think it hits different when you have had a personal experience with inappropriate sexual conduct, or you've been sexually assaulted, or if you've been raped, or been a victim of date rape or child molestation or anything. I think it just hits different when you hear some of these things. And so I'm hearing it, but and I know y'all probably noticed in my face, and I'm just like, how in the world? Like, how is this, how did he get away with that for so long? Or, how is he really getting on YouTube smiling and talking to the camera saying, and this is how I met it, and this is what I did, and this is how it worked out. Like, something's not right with some of these individuals. Like, we have to challenge our thought process about sex and how we see men and women. And
no,
I want to say more, but it's just
I just got super like animated.
Charged up.
In the chat, I see it's the perfect illustration and example. Dr. K brought
Yes,
up that the Bill Clinton
absolutely.
scandal is called the
Mm-hmm.
Monica Lewinsky scandal. That is the perfect
Yep.
illustration of exactly what I'm
Yep.
talking
Good point.
about, right? Because
Exactly.
that woman was ran through the ringer. There was no understanding of the power dynamic. There was no understanding about, how consent is informed in those type of moments. This girl was 22 years old. This is a freaking elderly man, right, with power, her boss. But the way that we talked about it in the media, the way that we talked about her in pop culture and this whole thing, we ran that girl through the ringer as though she was the villain in the story. And that is the perfect illustration of exactly what I'm talking about, right? Because as long as men are able to be exempt from accountability, then no, like no, because she the one who messed up. She the one who, I'm not looking at it like this is a 22-year-old girl, right, who I have power and influence over, and I can coerce into situations. It was never looked at like that, right? That's literally until like recently, and it's still on a much smaller scale. Like that, like I think back to the, I was very young when that happened, but I think back to the look at that, I just be like, that was insane. But that is indicative of our culture. And as much as we want to talk about all of these movements and all this stuff, we're still there. We're still there. So,
all right, ladies, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. There are a few things a few loose ends, but we can tie those another time. That's a discussion that's very multi-layered. But thank you for your comments. I'm going to go ahead and ask you all the next question. The next question is about hypergamy. Is hypergamy for Black women a fantasy, or is it a possibility? Is it a possibility? And for those of you who don't know, hypergamy is defined as the action of marrying or forming a sexual relationship with a person of a superior sociological or educational background. So is that something that is fantasy or a possibility? And obviously it's a possibility, but is it likely? Is what I'm asking you guys. What do you think? What do you think, Raven?
See, I didn't know if this was in regards to hypergamy with Black men or just hypergamy in general, is where I was trying to figure it out.
Well, that's a good question. I was specifically thinking amongst Black people.
Okay.
As you know, most Black women date and marry Black men. So that's what I was thinking. However, you can bring in whatever layers you want. Okay. So what do you think?
It depends. Oh, go ahead, Raven. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was raised up very pro-Black. You know, my family was very bring somebody Black home. And so that's why I spoke last week about being intentional. When you intentionally want to get you a good Black man or a good Black woman, you're going out to places where you know you can find a good Black man and a good Black woman. You're not at the club trying to hook up, bump into John, Susie, whoever. But you're tapping into the resources your family has. Don't so-and-so, ain't he a principal now? Ain't he looking for a wife? Yada, yada, yada. You know, you find out you do it intentionally. However, it seems a lot of the Black community is down with miscegenation and, you know, commingling with everybody. So in order to respect everybody's, you know, views, I'm not going to sit up here and say Black women just have to be with Black men, because that's not what's happening anymore. I guess not. I don't know. Sometimes I feel old school. But I think it's very possible for Black women. I think go to therapy, you know, do the healing, learn a couple languages, take care of your appearance. That doesn't mean a bunch of makeup or plastic surgery, but, you know, make yourself the best you can be, you know, that everybody keeps saying. And then once you become an asset, everybody's looking to add you to your portfolio. As long as you're dating intentionally and you become an asset, Asian, white, Hispanic, Middle Eastern men, they willing to make you more modest if you're an asset. So
do you think that it's not as likely within our own community?
Oh, that's why I said intentional, because if you're looking for the best Black man, yes. Would that Black man be the best option for you? May not necessarily be. It could be an Asian man, could be a white man, could be a Hispanic man. But that's why I said you got to date with intention, because if you intentionally want a Black man, it don't really matter what anybody else is doing. You're going to get you a Black man. So.
Okay. What do you ladies think?
Yeah, I like what Raven said about being intentional. Because I really do believe that it's really depending upon what type of black woman you are and what were the beliefs and values that you were taught about men and black men. Because and I'm gonna just put it out there because I grew up in Middle Georgia. I grew up where when it's dark at night, it's really dark at night. There were no street lights. Okay, and so it's this kind of theory and idea of, oh, you know you marry a black man, you got to be his piece. You got to strive and struggle and make sure y'all stay on top. Strive and struggle is them two words that are those two words that a lot of us who are African American, especially living in the South, you heard those words a lot. Like y'all, if you pray and struggle together, you're gonna be together forever. I come from a place where people stay married like until somebody die, or they stay married, the anniversaries of 40, 50, sometimes close to 60th anniversary. So, this topic definitely was new to me when I first came to Atlanta, had never heard about it, heard some conversation about it, and I'm glad that we're discussing it tonight. Um, so I think it depends upon what the woman is taught in terms of values and beliefs about what is marrying up. Because marrying up could be, it depending upon the family you come from, it could be you not marrying somebody who cussing women out and who are not aggressive. It depends on what you see, what you value. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, I think that on the flip side, if she marries outside her race, that idea and that belief that, oh well girl, he gonna take care of you, you know, because they take care of their women. That's what I used to hear growing up. But then when it's our brothers, is, oh, you gonna have to work hard and y'all gonna have to help and strive together to make life together. And it's like, oh, so he can't take care of me? And it's very disheartening, that I had to grow up to learn that, yeah, it's some successful black men out there. Not everybody is struggling. So I do think that it depends upon the woman, what she believes and what she values, you know.
Okay. Thank you, Cannon. What do you think?
I think that the reality of the situation is that when we talk about births, we talk about boys and girls, that black boys that are born outnumber black women, black girls. But then once you get to dating and marriage age range, that flips. And by the time you get to that demographic, black women tend to outnumber black men in that age range by like 2 million, right? So in the United States. So that's one thing to be aware of. The other thing is I think that we romanticize struggle love. We have this idea of that ride or die chick, right? That's gonna hold her man down, right? And all these other things. And going back to kind of what Raven was saying, I think that a lot of us black women, maybe black people in general, but especially specifically, I think it's ingrained in black women that we need to uphold the race. We need to keep this black family together. Like, this is what we need to do. Like, that's our responsibility, right? We're taught that. And so, and also, it's this weird, I want to call it bipolarness in the conversation, where it's like, you need to choose better. You need to pick better. It's like, you need to lower your standards. You're a gold digger. You just want money. And it's like, what? Like, black women are far from being gold diggers, first of all. We are the least likely to date outside of our race. Some people like to say it's because we're the least desirable. In my experience, is usually because we're the most willing to do so. And I think a lot of that goes back to that being taught to be to make sure that you are loyal to that whole thing, right? I think that we can be hypergamous, but I think that that's a very new concept for us. And I think we have to open up our our criteria, right, for what we're looking for and what we're expecting to be able to get. And I think we also have to get rid of the guilt and the shame associated with wanting to be in a better socioeconomic situation. I feel like we are like one of the only groups of women that get shamed for wanting to be
a little bit more of one man.
Exactly. To want to have forethought and planning
Yep.
and think like, you know, I want to be able to take care of my children. I want to be able to do this. I want to be in this type of situation. And we're like shamed for it. Like, oh, your standards are too high and these other things. And I just think we have to get rid of that. I think a lot of us are just beginning to do it. And so I think that it absolutely is a possibility. We have to get okay and comfortable with luxury and desiring it, and it's okay, and we deserve it. And we're not, you know, we're not selfish. We're not, you know, all of these other things that we are called and considered just because we want better lives for ourselves and our children. So we have to get past that. And once we throw that out the window, I think we'll be okay. I think we're moving in that direction where we're finally like, you know, I have to do what's best for me in my life, and it's okay, and I don't have to be guilty about it. I don't have to be a ride or die and holding down all the stuff. I don't have to do it. So
right. I like.
Yeah, we ain't gotta die. We ain't gotta die, and we ain't gotta pick cotton no more. We ain't gotta die. We ain't got to go work the fields no more. We can have we can go get our hair done every week if we want to. We can go to the nail shop. If I ask you for some money to get my nails done, and you know, you a potential husband, you a mate, you know, we going somewhere. I'm like Dr. K in the comments. GOAL, gold digger. I ain't trying to take from you. I just know I know I need to be kept a certain way. Like it's nothing wrong with that. You know, or like we hear a lot, you know, everybody has a preference. Well, our preference is, you know, I'll
not having
have
a struggle.
to ride the back of the struggle bus.
Right.
You know, right.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that they don't promote this idea. Not to say that I won't make an absolute statement, but when you hear Black men talk about divesting, they don't go get another woman to make them work hard. They go get them a little Puerto Rican princess, a little Colombian queen, set her on up. She's not considered to have to put in the work, dig it out the mud with you. You get your money. You go rain it on them women, which love whoever you want to love. But I just think it's convenient. Y'all don't make any other women, not y'all, not everybody. It doesn't seem to be the habit for Black men to get other women and make them get it out the mud with them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really see this that often.
Nobody asked a white girl, was she there during the struggle? Nobody asked the white girl, Hispanic girl, was she there before the money? Did she?
They cheer her on when she had the draft call.
You know,
what's up?
Nobody asked that, but we are expected to do that, and we're considered not worthy if we don't. But here's the thing: they make it clear to us that we're not worthy even when we do, because you know I can go and get me somebody else from Brazil, or you know. So either way, we're not worthy to them. But I just find it interesting with thinking about what you were saying, Cannon, about how there was that time when there was this push, and it's changing now, but there was this push for Black women to hold a man down, you know, help me get to where I'm trying to go, you know, be ride or die, stick with me through thick and thin. There was a push for that. And now Black men are like flipping it. They're like, wait a minute, no, we're not asking you to do that.
You should have picked better.
You're high value. We're high value. You just have to be good enough for us now. So it's like, but the truth of the matter is, and this is not a blow to Black men, the truth of the matter is that most of them are not that so-called high value. Making 10-15% being majority. So it's just an interesting, the conversation is interesting. The shift is interesting that, you know, there was a time when they were like, you got to hold us down. But now it's like, oh, no, you want that man that can provide for his family, which is a reasonable expectation for a woman to have, but you got to earn them. You got to be a certain way. And I think whether a man is making 30,000 or 100,000 or 200,000, you still got to be a certain way.
You don't realize what's going on,
but I realize it.
No, I'm familiar with this. Basically, it's mind games. Period. All of it.
Yes,
all of it.
I know. They're trying to shift it because
it's a trend. There's no consistency here.
Yeah, we want it.
It's whatever. What can I say to get you in line with what benefits me? Whatever I gotta say, I'm gonna say it.
Now you masculine and you trying to take your husband partnership. If you don't go 50-50, you're a house slave and a child that don't want to work. It's nowhere to win.
You need to choose better. We don't care about your degree. We don't care about your education. We don't care about your income. But the average Black man will only ever make $40K a year, and your standards are too high. But we don't care about what you make, and that doesn't bring anything of value to us or the community, even though we're only making 40K and we're like okay with it. Yeah. None of it adds up. It doesn't.
Go ahead. Oh,
we lost Ray.
Hold on. Who did I? Oh,
you kicked off everybody.
I am so sorry. I'm pressing buttons. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. No. What I was gonna say? It's the rewriting of history to escape the accountability for me. That's what it is for me, because years ago, just like you all just said, you got to hold them down. Remember when a lot of our brothers were locked up, incarcerated. They still are, but remember when crack hit, then they all got locked up, and then it was like y'all got to hold it down for us. Some of my sisters going back and forth. Like when I worked in corrections, the women who would come visit versus men, family members for inmates, the numbers are astounding. Okay, astounding. It's always her with the children in tow, or with the mama in tow, or the aunt. We held it down. And then it was, you're this woman of the 90s or early millennium. You get educated, you fine, you smart. You can add to a brother. Now all of a sudden it's y'all are out of order. Or why are you talking about education, or why are you talking about holding something down, or whatever. We talking about that because that's what you were talking about years ago. Now all of a sudden it's, oh no, we can't talk about that. It's the rewriting of history for me. That's what it is for me. Because now all of a sudden, all these same things, and I see somebody in the comments, Vera said, pimp talk. Yeah, I had an uncle, he was real good at that. My uncle told me a long time ago that, yeah, baby, a man knows how to say something when you first meet him, and then he'll say that same exact thing to try to make you feel bad about yourself later on down the line. And he looked me dead in my face, and my uncle said, and that's when you know that one ain't the one. He used some other choice words, but he was like, that's when you know that ain't the one. It is the whole rewriting of history. See, how many days and nights and hours and minutes do we see on the internet talking about, how when Black women started receiving welfare or accepting welfare, oh, that's when they started pushing us out of the picture. But nobody wants to talk about how welfare came about. Nobody wants to talk about how after when Dr. King died, after after the Panther movement kind of fizzled away. Nobody don't want to talk about that part.
After everybody started pimping and sexual exploitation.
Yeah. Now is and
we were
what
dead
I just told y'all about rewriting history. Yeah, exactly. Now I'm supposed to let my kids starve
for the movement, for the Black man. And rewriting.
Yeah. The problem is that
rewriting history to escape accountability is narcissism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Did y'all hear what I said? And then Ashley, I'm sorry. Yeah. That's what it is. It's kind of a narcissistic attitude that everything I'm supposed to be doing, it has to somewhat center around me and not necessarily you. And then that's when we run into problems. But let me stop because I can go all night talking about this.
Yeah, y'all gotta save that one. That's a good one. I'm actually gonna have an
Yeah.
expert come on and talk about
Mhm.
welfare and the progression of it, how it started and why it started, and the truth, not what we have been
Mhm.
hearing from a lot of our brothers
Exactly.
about welfare. Nobody talks
Mhm.
about some of those things that you mentioned, and they also don't talk about the fact that these homes are already broken. They were already broken. People weren't kicking out their
Mm.
husbands. People are not kicking out their husbands like,
Mm.
you got to go because I need a welfare
Mm.
check. That is not how it went down. That's rewriting history. I love the way you said that.
Nope.
Say it again. Close us out with that. Um,
Mhm.
oh wait, before I close us out,
Mhm.
let's get back to the question. We kind of navigated away, but I agree with everything that you ladies said. I wanted to make it just make it clear that I do believe that if you want to marry a man of a certain stature, of a certain socioeconomic status, obviously you will have to appeal to that man.
Mhm.
And it's very true
Mhm.
when Kevin Samuels talks about those men wanting women who are fit, who are attractive, wanting submissive women. I think all men want that. But of course, a man who has more options will want the best of the best. Of course your competition is going to be tougher. I agree with that. That makes sense. um but when I ask the question, is hypergamy in the definition that I have presented, the actual definition, is it likely for Black women? It's not likely for Black women, no matter how beautiful you are, no matter how poised you are, no matter how submissive you are, just because of the numbers. If we look at the numbers, most Black men are not going to college. So if you go, and this is not a blow, college is not for everybody. If you look at the statistics, I think it's about 33% of Black men who have some form of higher education. Don't quote me on that. I got to look at it again. Um, but the definition says hypergamy is the action of marrying or forming a sexual relationship with a person with superior social, logical, or educational background. So right off the bat, if you're trying to date a Black man, and especially if you have some form of higher education, it will just by numbers be less likely to also date a man who has a higher educational status. That's just by numbers. And many studies have shown that women who have higher the levels of education tend to either not marry because they prefer to marry a man who has a higher or at least the same level of education, or they marry somebody with lesser education. So just by definition, I don't think it's likely. And then you think about the socioeconomic aspect. Most Black men make more money than Black women, but it's not enough to put them in a whole different tax bracket. So knowing that alone, I would say no, it's not likely. But I do agree with you all that, it's possible. I have friends who have husbands that allow them to stay at home and they work, they're stay-at-home moms and they do very well. Nice big house, kids, 2, 3 cars, private school education. They're doing very well. So I know it's possible. I have a cousin who's the same way. It's very possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. But just by
Mhm.
numbers, I find it is very unlikely. And that's one reason why I think it's quite interesting that so many Black men are choosing to rewrite this narrative, because most of them most of them can't even offer that hypergamous situation just by
Mm.
number.
Mm.
But but
Yeah.
I
That's why they want
People who
50-50.
can go to Brazil to get Brazil don't brag about Brazil. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but anyway,
Yeah.
that was yet again another multi-layered conversation. Pretty soon we're going to open up the
Mhm.
phone so that people can call in. Jovo, I love that quote that you said about people rewriting the narrative and narcissism. Can you say it one more time to close us out?
It's
You
gonna
want
be
me
our
to read it
slogan.
again? Yeah, I posted it on my Facebook page. Yeah. So it basically says narcissists rewrite history to escape accountability. And then at the bottom it says you're not crazy. And I think that that's the message that we need to send to sisters who do want, educated, well-to-do brothers, who do want businessmen, who do want, men who are, willing to make certain sacrifices, whatever your preference is. You're not crazy for wanting what you want. You're not crazy. You're not crazy. You know, like I said, and just like Ashley just said, I can go all night. It's a multi-layered conversation about where some of these theories and this whole, conversation on accountability and where some of these things begin. I can go all night about it. But most of the time, narcissists like to rewrite history so that they don't hold themselves accountable for certain things. That kind of manipulation. So it's
Mhm.
one of my favorite quotes now. Discovered it a couple of weeks ago. I've saved it in my phone. I've written it down at work. Because sometimes we have to remind ourselves we're not crazy. Like what you want is what you want, and if it's not harming your values, if it's not harming self and others, then go for it. But we're told to stay in our place and to stay strong and uplift people. And I think the time for that is we're in a whole new, we're in a whole new year, whole new time and space in modern history. Like the time for us to stop lifting, just like Cannon said before, all this responsibility on Black women to represent Black people. We're not the only Black people. It's some Black men, but that's a whole nother conversation. Whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ladies, let's go ahead and move on. Our last topic for tonight is what can Black women do? I know we spent some time talking about the brothers, but what can Black women do to rebuild a traditional family structure? Right now, most homes are parented by one parent, and the majority of those homes are parented by women. In our communities, most of our homes are single parented homes, and the single parent is a woman. Um, what can we do to change that? Now, I know some people are like, well, why does it need to be changed? But on the premise, and you all can disagree and bring in other ideas, please do. But on the premise that what's happening now is not working, what can we do? What can
Yeah. I'll start. I'll take it. Okay, a few things. I think that the first thing is that we have to understand when we talk about these traditional families, right? A lot of times first of all, we romanticize the heck out of the past. I forget the name of it, but it's like what the halo effect or something. I don't know, something. I forget what the name of it is, but we romanticize the heck out of the past, right? And like she said, we make these narratives and we rewrite history and do all of these things. When we think about Black people and Black families specifically, I'm not sure by and large. I mean, the marriage rates were higher, but I'm not sure by and large if we have ever been this traditional nuclear two family structure, two a man and woman only family structure. Our family structures have always been very different. We have our grandparents deeply involved, our aunties and uncles and cousins, and it's been an entirely different family structure, right? So I don't know. We've never and I remember it was really interesting because I have white friends that I'm friends with and stuff like that. And one of the things that they will always say, they'd be like, cousins, like, especially as adults, they're like, we don't talk to cousins. Like, what are you? That's not like, they don't even consider it like to be immediate family, right? But to us, like a lot of us grew up with our cousins being like brothers and sisters. Like, so we have had an entirely different family structure for a long time because we've had a totally different experience. We also have to take into consideration that there was a time. See, this is why I always say, I think that we as Black women have always done a very good job at being agile enough to adjust to our environments. And one of the other things that we have to understand is there once was a time, it wasn't that long ago, Black women, well, women in general, couldn't open up a bank account, couldn't own property, right? You had to have a man to do those things. It was necessary. Like you needed it. There was no other choice, right? So we have to take that into account as well. The other thing that I really, really want to bring up, and oh my God, I just want to put this thing to rest. I understand that there are issues. I'm not trying to say children should just be born willy-nilly with no intention or no structure or anything like that. But we have to understand this out of wedlock birth rate that we talk about all the time, because I feel like the way that it's framed to say that Black women over time specifically have become more irresponsible, right? Or are not requiring as much, when it's actually the opposite, because the Black birth rate overall has dropped. It has consistently dropped over the past 40 years. So that's single women having babies, married women having babies. It's dropped. It's going down. There are not more Black women having babies. Like, it's just not the case. What is happening, right? When you would say, well, before this percentage of Black children were born and were out of wedlock, now it's higher. That's because married Black women are not children. Like, their birth rate declined even more than the single women birth rate. So they went down to stop having as many kids or kids at all. And then you have a lot of Black women who also are not getting married because the like you said, the marriage rate has gone down. So they're not having children either. So of course the share of the birth rate is higher amongst the single women, because so the single women have been having less babies in general. They only take up more of a share because the women aren't getting married, they're not having the kids, and the ones who are married are not having kids as much as they were. That's the only reason. Now, we can talk about what, going back to your question, I think Black women are doing something about it. And I think that that's one of the things that they're doing about it. I think a lot of us are waiting longer to have children. A lot of us, like you say, are not having children at all. A lot of it may have to do with trauma, right? We're like, I don't want to bring a kid into this jacked up situation like that I grew up in, that I was in, whatever. Like, I could speak from personal experience. I think a lot of us do have a real fear of being a single mother. And I don't think that fear only comes from, I'm having premarital sex. Just because you get married doesn't guarantee you won't be a single mother. And I know this firsthand because my 19-year-old son, his father and I were married, and I still was a single mother. Right. And I was very apprehensive. That's why I have my kids are 15 years apart. Right. I was very apprehensive even about getting married. And even now I'm still like, I had this baby. Because you understand that you could still end up being a single mother, and you seen so many struggle. You seen all of these things and you like, nah, I don't want to do that. So I think that by and large, Black women are saying, either I'm not going to bring children into a bad situation because I've seen so many bad situations. I'm going to go ahead and get my education. I'm going to go ahead and do what I need to do. I'll take care of my nieces and nephews. I'll be auntie such and such over here. I can take better care of my extended family, because the thing is that what's also different in our communities is that whenever we come into having wealth or having any kind of resources, what's different in our communities versus some other communities is that a lot of times we're either the first or one of the only ones, or a very small group that actually do. So you have your other family that actually ends up depending on you more so than would necessarily be the case in other communities. So that's also a responsibility. So when you know how much children cost, and you know how much more likely you are to be in poverty when you have children, I think that a lot of us have looked at that and we're like, So I think we need to be a little bit more clear when we're discussing that situation, like the out of birth rate and things like that. We can have more conversation about how do we get more Black women to a place where they feel comfortable getting married and having children. We could talk about fertility, you know what I mean? Because fertility has gone down across the board for everybody. Like there's the fertility rates in general have gone down, men and women, especially men. So so we can have like those different discussions, like how do we encourage more people to quote unquote get married or do all of these things. But I think that just correlating it specifically to say, if you have this marriage, this equals this. In our community specifically, it doesn't necessarily bear out. And I think that Black women have adjusted and been very agile and have found ways to help the community and build the community. That doesn't necessarily mean bringing children into it.
So I appreciate that because I can relate. I am a single woman. I'm not going to have children, and I want a child. I really do. I want to be a mom, but I'm not going to. I have decided that I'm not going to bring a child into this world and not be married. And I know many other women who are of that frame of mind, okay, or were of that frame of mind before they got married. So I agree that there are Black women, contrary to what the narrative is, there are Black women who are sexually responsible, okay? There are Black women who are not reckless out here birthing children to any old who, okay? There are, and there are more than what I think a lot of Black men would have you believe. And probably not even what they would have you believe, probably than what they know, because they're going by what they see in their lifestyle, in their community, and amongst the women that they attract, But there are a lot of women who are like me, who are not going that route. But we still can't ignore that the vast majority of our children are being born outside of wedlock. And now being married doesn't guarantee that your children will be raised by both their parents. Divorce happens. There are men who leave, there are women who leave.
Death.
And there are death happens, death in our community is very prevalent, and I also think is
and addiction.
And I'm addiction. Yep. And I'm going to try to find this article.
Yes.
I believe it's on Black demographics. But out of all of the homes where children are born to unwed mothers, a good half of those mothers are cohabitating. They're not married, but they're cohabitating with men. Okay. And so that's something that I find very interesting. A lot of Black men skip over that. They're like, well, you married, you having babies and you ain't carrying before you marry, but they're in relationships with men who are just as responsible for bringing this baby into this world. And they're playing house, but they ain't wifing these women, so and I blame the women, but the men obviously have their hand in it as well. So, but I want to know, what can women do? At this point, we know we have men that feel like they ain't got nothing to do because they're men. We can talk about that another day. But what can the women do? What can Black women do to prevent that from happening? And I see it every day, most of our children are being raised by a single mom. And what is happening is you might have, like I said, half of those women who are unmarried and having kids are cohabitating with their child's father. But what can we do? What can be done so that is not happening? Like, why are they okay with procreating with a man that's not really committed to them?
I guess my question to you is numbers, right? Do we expect there to be children that will be born out of wedlock, right? Like, is that an expectation or is that unrealistic, right?
No, we expect it, but I hate that it's very disproportionate.
No, this is
our children. Most Black children are born to unwed mothers.
Correct. So let me ask it this way. Okay, so if let's say that there are only 10 children that are born, right?
Mhm.
10 children total, period, that are born, right? And 2 of them are born to a married couple, and then the other 8 are born to people who are unmarried. But let's say prior to that, there were hundreds of children being born, right? And a larger proportion of those children were born to married couples, right? And even though it was um a bigger number overall, right, that people were having those children out of wedlock, the percentage was smaller for their share of births.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is when you say what can women do, it's almost, the thing is that I feel like what needs to be addressed more is, like I said, why are we not having as many children as we were before, right? Because I just feel like focusing on, unless you're going to deal with all these social economic situations, which you should and you can, whatever. I just think it's unrealistic to be like, well, we're going to get so the people we have left that's having kids, we're going to get them to all get married. We have to figure out how to do that. Instead of looking over here and say, well, why do we have all these people that actually have the resources, that are doing this, that are doing that? How do we get them into situations where they're populating the communities? You know what I mean? As opposed to like kind of wagging the finger that even though there are less Black women, like I say, as a total, even having kids, but it's like now we turning around and putting the responsibility on them now because the quote unquote responsible or married Black people are having less kids. So now we looking over here like, well, they're not having kids. So y'all need to be better with y'all. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like we're doing that, you know, like y'all got to get it together. We know it was people that have been in your situation, but now you together because we over here and we not having no kids. So you got to get it together.
And I get that. So my question would be, and I pulled up some, an article about it. My question is how significant has that decline been? Fewer women are having children.
I think
but how significant
I think we need I think we need to talk about too the amount of Black women in recent years that have died giving birth. And I know of someone who it's been not 1, not 2, but 3 or more women in their family. There's like this history of women dying within this person's family. They're dying during childbirth. I think that needs to be added to the conversation, as well as some of the fertility issues. I mean, I'm not saying that we can't do anything about keeping, families intact or whatever, but the reality of it is, and I know, some people may not want to hear this, but there are women, they actually they want to be single. They don't want that responsibility of family. I know some of them, when they are traveling, they're working, they're into something, whether it's their career. I always tell people that, now that I do have a child, I understand how something can become somebody's baby, whether it's their business, whether it's, you know, material things, whether it's something that they like to do. I can totally see how somebody can make certain things a priority. And the reality of it is, there are a lot of women out there that having a kid or having a child is not a priority right now. It's not a priority. They have other things, just like, Cannon has said this, a few times between last week and this week, that back in the day, we couldn't own property, we couldn't own businesses, we didn't have deeds and mortgages and we didn't have these things. I think there are, and you're talking to somebody who's been married for 17 years with a child. I think the opportunities for women now are endless, and I think some women are just choosing to, you know what? I know, I know I'm not married. I know I'm nowhere near getting married. I don't want to focus on that right now. I want to focus on something else.
Yeah. And there are a lot of women, men
now
always
in terms of what we can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I
go
agree.
ahead, Ashley.
I can attest to that because that's me. You know, I could very well go be married, you know, and I
Mhm.
could have had a child, married or unmarried. But and men
Mhm.
always say, oh, men are choosing not to marry. And it's true. Some of them are choosing not to marry because they're not finding the type of women that they want. But it's funny how they completely ignore the fact that a lot of Black women as well are quality Black women who will be great wives. And we are choosing
Mhm.
not to marry because we are not
Right.
happy with the litter. Okay.
So what kind of
And
and so
so I agree that
Mhm.
needs to be talked about, you
and
know.
so what other ways do you personally feel that you
Mhm.
bring value to the community?
Well, for one, I'm a teacher. I think that's value.
Mm.
Every single day, Monday through Friday, I am
Mhm.
sewing into children. I'm helping them develop life skills that some of them aren't even really getting at home. I'm showing them an example of how to
Mhm.
carry yourself as a woman, specifically to the girls. I'm showing them love. I'm teaching them, obviously, academic concepts so that they can go on to high school and to college and fulfill their dreams. So I feel very useful. And I shut down anybody who tries to make me feel less than because I'm not married and I don't have children. I have kindred children and I sew into them. I was invited to a few graduation parties from,
Mhm.
I mean, trunk parties and graduation parties this summer because from my first class ever, they're graduating from high school going into college. And those parents remembered me last weekend, I went to go visit an old student. His mom had a new baby. She wanted me to come see the baby. You know, I had parents from years ago contact me. Oh, so and so's birthday is coming up, or look at this picture. She, you know, she's doing so well now. She's doing so well in sixth grade. She's doing so well in seventh grade. I know I'm making an impact. And so I think there are women who are like me who
Mhm.
have skill sets and who have a heart and who have a certain mindset and certain values that they are sharing with the community. And they're not married. I know a girl that I went to
Mhm.
college with who is changing lives left and right. She's unmarried and she doesn't have any children. She has an organization called the Gray Matter Experience. Y'all go look it up. And she's changing lives through this organization. And I went to college with her, and she's beautiful. And I know so many women like that, you know, who are valuable women, contrary to what Black men are saying on social media. They are upstanding women who carry themselves
Mhm.
well, who are feminine, who will be submissive to the right man, and who are making good life choices and who are choosing to be single because ain't nobody got to be single. You
But
know?
that's what I think that and that's why I say what I think by and large. But I was gonna say that's what I think by and large we are doing for the community, because at the end of the day, if we just like, we have to be realistic. What I'm saying is, realistically, we are already starting at a disadvantage. A lot of us are already born into poverty and impoverished situations, and when you
Mhm.
are bringing children, like I say, into the situation,
Mhm.
then that is more likely to keep you in poverty, whether you're married or not, right? As a Black woman. So what I'm saying is that I feel like the more Black women that we have that are aware of that, but they're still contributing in other ways and help bringing up that next generation, they don't have to necessarily do it as mothers or as wives. They can just be agile enough to do it in a
Mhm.
different way. Like we're the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, you know, that are like black women, different, like that all brings value to the community. That all brings that those resources back to the community. So I think that by us not getting so stuck in, because we just have to deal with reality. So we can just want to say at the end of the day, you know, I'm supposed to be a wife and mother, and this is going to be the greatest thing for the community. But it's like I say, when you think of the reality of it, 9 times out of 10, especially becoming a mother, especially if you were born into poverty, then you're even more likely to probably die there. So I think that by sometimes by not making those decisions, like I say, you're able to do more.
But the people who are not having children, though, Cannon, are the people who
Mhm.
are able to take care of the kids.
Mhm.
It's the college educated women and men who are not having children.
No,
Lower,
that's no, I think that they're, see, but when we say when you're able to take care of the kids, right? Like I say, having children You think
It's
that
not
they're able to
cheap
take
at
care of the
all.
kids.
Mhm.
It's very expensive.
They're in the situation that they're
It
in
is.
because they don't have the kids to take care of. That's why
It is.
kids are expensive.
Okay.
I like what you said.
Exactly.
I like what
Go
you
ahead.
said, Cannon, about making families realistic because it could because I'm not 30 yet,
Mhm.
but my generation is very into LGBTQ. I don't even know if black families are going to look the same in 30 years. I can't even make that assessment anymore. Like I said about miscegenation, I think we have to be realistic. It may not be a majority
Mhm.
of two-parent black homes in the black community anymore. It might be a mix of, this L and this G and, whatever it may be. But I think we got to be flexible. We, like I say, misunderstanding. We got to understand that everybody's not going to be husband and wife matchup. Some people are into
So
polyamorous relationships, and I'm not going to shame that either. But I think, like Miss Jo said, we have a wealth of opportunities available to us now. And it's not fair to still pigeonhole us back into that same little hole and say,
okay.
well, if you ain't gonna get no husband and wife, that's it. And even if you have two wives or two husbands, I think in general we need to like raise the literacy rate, figure out what's going on with childhood obesity because I was fat, shoot, still fat,
Mhm.
working on that now. But but
Yeah.
that's a real reality, regardless if your parents are L, G, straight, whatever the case may be. That's what's going on with black children now. So yeah, we can work on the family structure, but I don't even know what that's going to look
Mhm.
like in 30 years. But I know kids need to learn how to read. Kids need to learn how to control their actions to a certain extent, like what you said, Cameron,
Yeah.
about consent, because I teach that now. The oldest I'll go is 4 years old, or five-ish, but 2, 3 years old, she says she doesn't
Mhm.
want to play with you right now. It's a wealth of toys over here. The answer is no. They get very comfortable. The answer is no.
Right.
It is what it is.
Right.
Now we can sit over to the side and process those feelings.
Right.
But Becky said no. Or in the other
Mhm.
instance, Ronald said no. He said no. Becky, he don't want to play with you. He don't want you to touch him. It's no. But that's something that has to be taught early. And kind
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
piggybacking off the last subject,
Yeah.
we have to teach women how to reject as well, because my little brother just started dating, and I'm learning that no matter how nice you talk to some women, they're going to get your goofy ass, out of here. And we have to work on how we talk to each other as well. But I don't know, to say that we're going to give it back to a traditional family structure, I can't make that
It's not
assessment. At
realistic.
least not up under 30. I can't. I don't know about y'all,
Yeah.
but
Well,
my
that's real.
generation,
That's
we are
real.
very, very,
I,
very free.
well,
That Go ahead, Javonda.
I'm in a traditional situation. I really am, other than that I work every day, and kind of been that way since I married my husband. When we first got married, I was in college, so I only worked part time. So the majority of like our basic living, situation, he took care of it. There was a little time when my daughter was first born, I didn't work. I stayed home with my daughter, and anybody who knows me, personally, they know it really don't take a lot for me. So in terms of like lifestyle and having to manage things, I grew up in the country. I know how to grow food. If we need some peas, I can go out there and plant them, go out there and pick them. I've never been what some might
Just do some
deem
onions.
as like a high maintenance woman. Yeah, I just, we just made things happen. I think in terms of like rebuilding the traditional family structure, like, I went to college, in South Georgia. And I had a lot of people from, a lot of friends from, Metro Atlanta, North Florida, that I've, become, close to from college. A lot of us are college educated, a lot of us are married, and a lot of us are raising kids. And kids are not cheap. They are expensive. For me, I chose one, and I won't even say I chose that because I wasn't even supposed to have that one. You know, she's a miracle for me. But then when I start seeing how pregnancy took a toll on my body, how even stuff that I have to deal with now is happening, then you know I'm not sure I want to go through that again. So I don't think rebuilding the family structure is necessarily like promoting more procreation, because every woman has a story behind why she can or cannot go through pregnancy. I have a story behind that as well. I think in terms of rebuilding family structure, I think it's just structure. Period. There are a lot of things that I could be doing right now. You know, writing a book, contributing to, a show, certain things that I've been asked to do. And what I tell everybody all the time is if it interferes with my family life or my marriage, I'm not going to go for it. And if it messes with some of my spiritual beliefs, I'm not going for it. Like that's just who I am. That's how I'm built. I think we just need to start standing for stuff. We need to start honoring, what we value. And I think that's how you rebuild a family. A lot of kids are coming from two-parent homes, nowadays, and they don't have values. There's nothing that says, oh, they came from those are her parents. Back in the day, it was like where I grew up at. My grandmother, like everybody knew all my grandmother's, grandchildren because we conducted ourselves a certain way. You could tell that, quote unquote, she had her hands on us because we conducted ourselves a certain way. There were certain beliefs and values that we now repeat. That it was like we had a kind of a family motto, a family crest. Like this is our family, and we were encouraged to be individuals, but it's like we stood for something. Like me having a great grandmother that lived to be over 100. She died when she was 106. Like that was very significant for us, and all this wisdom that she passed down to us, we stood for something. And I think nowadays a lot of two-parent homes, and I like what somebody said in the comments, that just because you're in a two-parent home doesn't mean that both parents are raising you. A lot of times, a lot of the scheduling, the family meals, all that stuff is put on, the mom. I think it's just that we need to just restructure what we believe in, like what does our family stand for? How are we raising, our kids? Like, I had a parent teacher conference yesterday, and my daughter is doing really well in school. And instead of me sharing that moment with her, I was like, let's go find dad and let's talk to dad and let's tell dad, what the teacher said. I intentionally make meals, and it was my husband's idea in the beginning. We're gonna eat dinner at the table, like no matter what. That right there has been that's our thing. Like that's what we stand for. Like all three of us, we're that family. We're gonna communicate. We're gonna laugh together. We're gonna do stuff together. We gotta stand for something. And I'm not saying it necessarily for me. It's spiritual, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the Bible or anything like this. It could be, you know, um, a activity. One of my favorite activities that I used to do when I was working with juvenile offenders was, hey, let's create a shield on how you want to represent yourself. Let's see how you can take this back home. Like, what's interesting to you? What do you like to do? What is good about being in this family, like a team. And I think now you walk into some two-parent households, you got dad over here, he working 50, 60 hours. You got mama over here who working the same amount of hours, and she trying to hold everything down in the house. And then you got
Need
kids
that
on electronic
village.
devices all times of day and night.
Need the
Yeah,
village.
yeah, we gotta have some structure. Like, yeah, we need that. I had a village growing up. My parents didn't raise me. I was raised by, actually, I
Me
was
too.
hearing your story. I was raised by, aunts and uncles and grandparents. I was fortunate enough to know both of my great grandmothers, and fortunate enough to know, my paternal grandmother is still living. Fortunate to know my maternal, grandparents, and they raised us. They didn't always do the right thing. They didn't always say the right things. They didn't always frame things the way, politically correct or whatever. But we had a team. Like we had something to build off on. And now when people look at either my situation, or my brother's situation, because I have a brother, he's married, has two kids. People can't believe, oh, you married, you got kids, because of how we grew up. But it's like you need to believe it because of how we grew up. We grew up with teams. Like, we just had this big family that represented something. So I think that's how you rebuild family structure. You find out what your family gonna stand for. And it ain't got to be super traditional. Like, it could be, we just a motto. You know, um, we're and I'm laughing because it's something that me and my daughter and my husband joke about. But we're a hugging family. We're an affectionate family. That's what we do, because me and my husband joke about we didn't grow up with a whole lot of affection. So, we'll hug and clown about that. Like, that's what we stand for. And my daughter will carry that when she gets older. So, what are we leaving for these kids to carry? Other than you got daddy over here doing his thing, mama over here working, doing her thing, and then the kids just kind of, they looking and they kind of learning stuff, but they not. Like, we got to have family structure to rebuild structure, if that makes sense.
All right. Thank
So,
you.
that's my take on it.
Thank
Yeah.
you, ladies. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Hopefully, it's giving people a new way of looking at things. But you all brought us some very interesting
Yeah.
points. I have a caller on. We have Darwin. Darwin, say hey. Everybody can hear you.
Hey, everybody. Hope y'all can hear me.
Can you all hear him?
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey. Uh-huh.
Hey, great show as usual, ladies. I was just calling to chime in on the comment and the point of view that you said I came in a little late, but you said you kind of agree with Kevin Samuels about the high value man and the woman, should fit the criteria of a high value man they seeking that. I just want to let you guys know, you women know, don't listen to anything Kevin Samuels say, okay? Just one. All right?
Okay.
All right? From a very point of view and very misogynistic point of view. So when he says that's coming from a narcissistic point of view, right? For a man to say, I'm a high value man. To who? Who are you a high value man to? Any woman you talk to? No, That's not the case. Because when he talks to women, he looks down on them when they don't fit the criteria, just because he thinks he's this high value man, right? So the only person that can call him a high value man is the woman that he's with. I tell people all the time, only person that call me a deadbeat father or a good father is my kids, right? So
yeah, I agree. I don't agree with his definition of high value. And I don't believe that most women think of high value in that way. I think that it's very underestimated that a lot of us do want more than just money. We need other things, and that's what we value probably more than money. Money, I always say, is necessary, not sufficient. And a lot of guys here. Go ahead.
Now I agree with him. If that's what he wants to be, that's what he thinks a high value man is. That's okay with what he thinks, right? That's his opinion. But every woman doesn't think he's a high value man, right?
Exactly.
And like you just said, you might not value money the way he values it, or education. You might value those home values, right? Or respect for women that he doesn't have, right? So how can he say he's a high value man to the women he's talking to when he doesn't even know, right? I just wanted to put that out there. That's all,
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Darwin.
I'm with you guys.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You guys got questions for Darwin or no?
Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions for Darwin? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your support.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Go ahead, call in. Let us know what you all think. But yeah, there's so many different layers to this. When I think about, we need to have a whole show about Kevin Samuels. I am not anti-Kevin Samuels.
I was gonna say, y'all get a shot. What is happening? What are you trying to do?
Well, I agree with
Raven, don't be scared.
I don't.
I am soft as uncooked pudding pie, girl.
Unhand your neck. Unhand your neck, okay?
Y'all
don't be scared.
Cancel me. No, like I know. I have listened and watched his videos. I don't agree with a lot of what he says. I do believe that he's narcissistic. I do. If you just listen to him, you can tell he's narcissistic. We have another caller. I'm going to go ahead.
Call it in. See, I tried to.
I'm going to answer.
What you scared?
Hi, Steven.
Press 1 to send a.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Steven.
You're online. Thanks for calling in.
I heard y'all talking about Kevin Samuels.
Uh-oh. What would you like to add?
Raven, get off the screen. No, Raven. We're not scared over here.
Come on back, sis. Come on back, sis.
We have a love-hate relationship here.
I didn't want to distract from anything. I'm just gonna sit back. I'm not gonna say
Come on back.
I mean, I really came to talk to Raven because Raven's been saying a lot in the group, and I've been watching the podcast, so
okay.
I really wanted to see
what did I say on the podcast.
Not on the podcast. I'm sorry, in the group. But I'm talking about what you guys have been talking about on this podcast.
All right, go ahead. Speak your mind.
I think that Black people in particular, I think we got a lot of things going on that we need to get fixed and rectified. And I don't know quite where it starts.
Starts with you.
Yeah, true. But I do feel like people like Kevin Samuels are needed to have those difficult conversations that a lot of times we skip over or go over, especially with family members and stuff like that, So I think those conversations are needed to be had in the public, and I think they're important.
Yeah, I think
you had these conversations before, Kevin Samuels?
I don't think so. Not to this extent.
I mean, like within your own family. I'm not talking about like in the grand scheme, but like in your own family. We are having Kevin Samuels type conversations.
I said not with such a male following either. I think that's what's different. Before it was usually Black women constructing Black women. This is probably one of the first times where it's been a Black man. So
how many people act like a lady, think like a man?
A lot, but do you consider Steve Harvey and Kevin Samuels doing the same type of work?
I consider them men instructing women on men.
Well, I think Steve Harvey was trying to sell a book.
And what do you think Kevin Samuels is selling?
He doesn't have a book, but he's selling his consultation services.
Okay.
But, that same argument, for Kevin Samuels, he's been divorced. Steve Harvey was divorced 3 times. So everything you say about Steve Harvey, you can say about Kevin Samuels.
Right. No, I was bringing that up to challenge your idea that these conversations had never been had and that nobody's been talking to Black women, especially Black men. Like that's just not accurate. And I also think that until someone can explain to me what happened to the videos that Kevin Samuels had up from his men's week, that got so many dislikes because the men didn't like being talked to like that, then it's a little disingenuous.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't disagree.
I think we live in a culture that has had no problem laying all the problems of the community at the feet of Black women. I don't know any time that it has not been blamed on Black women.
No, false. I disagree with that. For a long time, it was on the fault of Black men and absent fathers. But recently, when it came out that Black men were some of the most active fathers, you can't use that deadbeat argument.
So
then what's the
single
problem?
parent homes really single parent then?
Then there is no problem then. The Black men are active, then we have no issue.
They're more active. So it doesn't matter if they're single parent because the dad is still there.
Wait, repeat that for me. I missed that.
You said the fathers are most active and they're not deadbeats anymore. Doesn't that contradict the whole Black women are the only ones raising kids if fathers are more active?
Not at all.
But it's kind of,
I said that Black fathers are the most active. So that story about men being deadbeats, especially Black men, is debunked by that.
Well, Stephen, not exactly, because here's the thing, and you guys, you're kind of contradicting yourselves because we hear a lot about how Black women are choosing the Pookies and the Ray Rays to raise kids, and then anytime, or to have children with, and then anytime we see a Black man, a grown Black man, doing something that is considered poor behavior, the 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 blame is always on the woman. Oh, it's because there's no father in the house, or because she out here having babies with Pookies and Ray Rays. So it's like you got to kind of pick a side. So are Black
So,
men active or are they not active? Like, which one is it?
yeah. So as far as the Pookie and Ray Ray situation, that has to do with more so marriage and marrying the mother and completing a family, right? Being an active father, you don't have to necessarily marry a mother.
And in all actuality, you know that was self-reported, right?
Yes, and I was going to say that too. That was self-reported data. And I'm not saying that Black men aren't good fathers. I know some great Black men, but we got to be honest. That was self-reported data. It's just like the data that you all debunk about why women get divorced. You know, there's data about why women get divorced. That was self-reported data. Women said that they got divorced because they felt unloved. They felt that their husbands were not attentive. They felt like they were doing more of the work or the finances. That was self-reported data.
Your report?
Wait, I'm sorry.
I read one of the reports. One of the reports said they were unhappy with the power structure in the home.
Yeah, but my point is that you all debunked that, right?
That was the top reason.
Yeah, there were reasons that you all debunked, right? Men, especially Black men, especially men in the group that we were part of, debunked that. They say, well, that's nothing, even though that's self-reported data and it's data that's been well documented. And so, and now one article comes around that says Black fathers are the most active. That was self-reported data. Okay. And we're not even quite sure if that was representative.
Isn't all data self-reported?
No, all data is not self-reported. You know that.
So when you do the census, that's not self-reported?
Say that again. The census is self-reported. All data is not self-reported. If I go into a hospital and do a study, they're going to check my vitals before and after the drug. I'm not self-reporting that the vital signs. Not all data is self-reported. But if I say, I work out 3 times a week, that's self-reported. You know?
Sure. But we're not talking about data that's not related to actual people. We're talking about data that has to be taken from individuals. So all data of that type would have to be self-reported. Who else would be able to answer if they're an active father?
And I'm not denying that they're not. I'm just calling that out. I'm highlighting that
they said, "Are you an active father?" They were like, "Yeah."
Because here's the thing: you don't know, and I don't either. We don't know if they were telling the truth. Most people are not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, I never spend time with my kid," or "I spend only two times a night with them out of the month." Most people are gonna say, "Oh, okay, it's really 2, but I don't want people to know that. I'm gonna say it's 5." You know, that's most people.
Look, I dig that. Mm-hmm. I dig that. So let's get rid of all self-reported surveys.
Okay.
So then where does the data land?
The data is that children are. Say it again.
I said the single mother rate is still what it is. The poverty rate is still what it is. Literacy rate versus the genders is what it is, which that's a very startling. Since most men are raised by mothers, I guess I'm trying to figure out where that discrepancy comes from.
So, but that's why we were asking you, because we're saying I don't deny any accountability for a mom, okay? But you're saying 2 different things. You're blaming single moms on one hand, but then on another hand, you're saying, but fathers are the most active fathers. So if they're so active, then you tell me, why are the children's literacy rates so low? Y'all great fathers. Y'all good fathers.
So being an active father, so let's say for an example, someone who was an active father, they spent 2 nights a week in the home. Those 5 nights are still being spent with the mother. Do you think that the father can recover those 2 days or those 5 days in just those 2?
No, I think that the women are mostly responsible if you spend more time with your children. But here's the problem. Black men want to act like they can stick their penis anywhere. And oh, she let me.
Yes,
But
no.
you have a woman that you decided to make a baby with, and now she's raising your child, and you don't like the way she's raising your child, but for some reason the narrative is still black women this, black women that.
So I said in the beginning of this call, I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. I think one of the reasons
egg.
we do point true, to an extent. But I think one of the reasons why you hear a lot of black, or as far as women in our group, is because I think that's what most recently affected. When we talk about the crack epidemic, and we talk about black men, and black men weren't in the homes, then who was in the home? And whoever was in the homes either gets the credit when it goes right, or they get the blame when it goes wrong. But what happens is, in our community, black women only want the credit when it goes right.
It's interesting.
Let me Ashley, respond to that. No, I like it, Stephen. Let me respond to that. I love the analogy. I heard an analogy one time, and I love this. The person was asking, like, let's just say, for example, we have a table, right? And the table requires 2 legs to be held up, right? But one of the legs is missing. So then you have this one leg that's doing all of the work to try to uphold this table. The table be wobbly because it's only one leg. It's supposed to be a 2-leg table. But somehow, instead of us being concerned about the other leg that's not there, we put all of the onus on the leg that's doing his darndest to hold the table up, even though the table is wobbly. So I think that's
traumatized women not raising our children well.
And then also what you just said about like why women get so much flack in our group and things like that goes back to the larger conversation that we were having earlier when we were talking about our society and our culture and how we treat women. This is not new. None of this stuff. I love it how we're having these conversations like this has never happened before. What? This has happened forever. Like, even if you want to take black women out of it,
the Salem witch trials blamed teenage girls for whatever was going on in their little community and burnt them alive at the stake. So clearly, women are always wrong. What are you talking
about? Okay, let Stephen finish. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, when you say women have been mistreated, okay, who are they mistreated by? White
by
men.
Black men that sold crack in their neighborhoods and sexually exploited them and their children. Next.
Y'all separate yourselves. You're real quick to separate yourselves from us and then say you need us. Or then say we're not protected. It's either you want us or you don't. And I think that...
Well, may I?
Please, somebody, please.
I mean, sure.
May I? I hear you, Stephen. I hear you.
Devonda speaking.
This Miss Jovo. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Right. How are you?
Can you hear me, Stephen?
I can.
I'm great. Okay, awesome. Let me just say this. And I think I said something along the lines in our last topic. What we, and let me just get my words right, because sometimes I have to think before I speak. A lot of times I do. Let me just say this. I hear both sides. I think what we're running into though is that we have certain men who are centering women around the problem. There's a lot of problem centered, who shot John going on. And so I want to know from you, from a male perspective, okay? What are, because Ashley brought out some good points about and we all remember having that discussion online about children's literacy rates. I want to know from you, what do you think the men are doing to increase a zeal in our kids in our community to really want to be educated? Because I know what the man in my house does. You know, I know my husband will go to STEM night. He'll go to what basically whatever we need to go to the school for. I know he's going to reinforce you need to read 20 minutes a day. I know he's going to reinforce let's go over multiplication tables. I and I think in the beginning when you called in, um, Cannon said it starts with you. What exactly are y'all doing to say it starts with us? Say that again, Stephen. I'm sorry.
Candace is there too? Oh, snap.
Yeah, Cannon's here. You see Cannon?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What exactly are you, or men that or other brothers are doing to reinforce this high level of accountability and to show, to really reinforce some change? Because one of my favorite things is we have to learn to be the change that we want to see. So when we wanted my daughter, our daughter to do better in school, we had to step back and think about how we're parenting and what we're doing to really increase her encouragement in academia. So we had to really get on the same page with, hey, she did her homework yet, or hey, have you talked to her about this? We had to have some open communication in my house about that. So, and that's what's working for us at this house. But what are brothers doing? Because I hear a lot about what sisters are not doing. And I love the analogy that Cannon made about the leg. It's more emphasis put on the leg that's kind of holding everything up, other than how do we get this missing leg back into place, or how do we fix it? What are brothers doing to not have this kind of problem centered, attitude? Where are y'all at with solution focused? That's what I want to know. Because we can go all day and night about what we're both not doing, but what are the brothers doing?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, that's a great question. So the difficult part about that situation is when we talk about the kids, right? We need to talk about whose kids these are. And I think that's one of the biggest issues, at least for a lot of black men or single black men, is how can they make a difference in the community? However, this isn't necessarily the climate where you just want to be dealing with anybody's kid. So I think you have to be mindful of the types of situations. Me personally, I grew up in a two-parent household. My mother was a housewife at one point. My pops was making six figures. All that. So, I grew up in a stable house, and I feel like one of the issues that a lot of people have is they don't know what that stable house looks like. That's the first thing. And then two, it starts out imbalanced. So as far as for me, what I do as a black man is I'm building my network. I'm trying to build my wealth. And at the end of the day, building a black family, because really a black family for black men doesn't have to include a black woman. Any woman I have kids with, my kids are going to be black. So I think we're kind of at a standstill where men are trying to work with what's left as trying to marry or deal with, a lot of the childless women. But if you see, a lot of childless women deal with men who have kids. So it's like,
because most black men have kids. I don't care what Kevin Samuels is telling y'all, more than 50% of black men have children. And
I don't believe that.
It's in data.
Okay, no. So let's just say that that's accurate. And Stephen, I'm so glad that you're here, and I am appreciating this conversation. I just want you to know, I am really appreciating this conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're willing to share your perspective. The question that I have is, when we look at a lot of these conversations, right? Kind of what Ash alluded to as well, when there are some men who don't feel responsible for bringing children into the world, how they'll say, you know, she let me do this, or she didn't make me use protection, or these other things. My first question is, do you agree with that? And my second question is, if you don't, what kind of conversations are you having with these men, or are you, or do you think it's necessary to?
Here's the thing. You cannot expect men to have those conversations. Now, I agree with you, you know, to an extent. I do feel like if you out here having sex, you should have a plan in place for if it goes wrong. You know, I don't know if necessarily every conversation, every person you date is going to have that conversation, because that's not necessarily what the marketplace looks like nowadays. But I don't think it's up to men to have a lot of those conversations, because at least for me, all my friends, you know, don't have kids or don't have baby mama.
But
So,
Steven,
I think
y'all
that's
expect us to hold women accountable, though. I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you finish, but y'all expect us to hold women accountable. There's a caller, Chris.
No, we just want y'all to stop having sex with them.
Yes, but here's the thing. I can't make, because I have friends who have been abstinent. I have most of my friends are married, and my friends ain't out here screwing around and having babies willy-nilly. I just got off the phone with one of my friends who's married, and she's choosing not to have a child until her and her husband are where they need to be. And I have other friends, I have cousins in my family who do not have children. So y'all acting like no black woman out here, like y'all ain't got no black woman to choose from that is making good choices. And I call bull. And then y'all will look at us and expect us to hold each other hold other women accountable. But I'm like you, I don't know these women out here who screwing this person.
So Steven, you don't know men out here who have children out of wedlock. You don't know any of them.
That's what I was gonna ask.
I don't have any close friends that have.
I didn't say close friends.
Well, I mean, it's either close friends or associates. So associates aren't people I really deal with on a day-to-day.
But you do know men who have children outside of wedlock.
I think somebody's trying to call in.
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
Of course.
I do.
So just how you all want us. Go ahead.
Well, I guess from that point, I don't understand what that would look like. For me, I feel like
the same thing it looks like when you holding women accountable. The exact same thing. Like whatever you're doing to hold women accountable, do the same thing. Huh?
How do I hold a man accountable?
You said what?
I said, how do I hold a man accountable if the man and the woman still want to have sex?
I mean, no. You're a man. You tell me, how do you hold a man accountable? I'm not a man. I don't know how to hold men accountable. I'm going to the source.
I thought security was a man's job. My bad.
Holding accountable can typically mean some type of violence or ostracization. That's what holding accountable for men means, at least to me. So if we hold somebody accountable,
I definitely disagree. What I was getting at was because I'm real big on community. I'm real big on using the resources within my community. I'm real big on till work, giving back. I hear a lot about and I respect your answer. Let me just say that, Stephen. Congratulations on you. Really holding down a household, raising your kids, building your wealth. Let me just say that is a beautiful thing. Okay. Because I think sometimes as Black people, like we talked about earlier, we don't really have awareness of what we deserve. So, I want to give you kudos to that. But what I do think that in terms of accountability, I always tell people that it's not so much the talking that we do, but it's the action and the walking that we do. Accountability could be you giving back time in your community and teaching your children to do the same. And then you see, a guy who is close to you or someone that you know, that guy is not only looking at Steven in reference to his wealth, now he's looking at Steven like, man, this guy is owning his own business, he's building wealth, he's building a portfolio, etc. But I also see this guy out and about where he lives. I see this guy pouring into where he lives, pouring into where his kids go to school at. You know, I'm the parent at the school who will come to school to represent for my daughter, but I'm also that parent who, hey, her little friend, hey, I see you too, and I see your mom's not here. Can I help? Can I stand in the gap for your mom or your dad? You know, I think a lot of times we put a lot of emphasis on economic growth and not enough on, and y'all know these my favorite words to say, value and principle growth. Like, I think I think Stephen is action. And I see what you're doing. I'm not disregarding what you're already doing, but I think in terms of accountability, I think you would be surprised to see with what you already have if you were to give back or to kind of, and I'm not saying you got to, volunteer 40 hours a week, but maybe is mentoring or going to that community center and showing your kids that, hey, we have this, but it's also a responsibility for us to give back. And now you got other men in the community looking at you like, not only is he building, wealth for himself, but he's teaching me how to build myself, and he's pouring back into where I live at the same time. So accountability is not just verbiage. Accountability is action. So I want to stress that to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I wholeheartedly agree.
I wanted to answer
Go
your
ahead,
question. I do believe that women have to hold women accountable, but I also believe men have to hold men accountable. You asked us, how are you supposed to do that when the man and the woman are still having sex together? That's what I want to know, because day in and day out, there are strange men in this group that we're a part of that will tell me I need to hold women accountable. And I'm like, wait a minute, how do I hold this woman accountable when she's willing to drop her panties? And then I have men who think they don't have to be accountable for the babies that they bring in, who are also willing to drop their pants. So do you see the hypocrisy? It doesn't make sense.
What I do and I don't. What it basically boils down to, and it sounds like you just kind of explained it to me, is that these groups of people hang out with groups of people. So the people that we want to hold accountable, like the men in our group, we want y'all to hold women accountable. Y'all aren't the women who are doing the behavior that needs to be held accountable. And
exactly.
Vice versa. Y'all are holding us accountable for, sticking and dicking.
No, they are the ones doing it, because they be putting the post up saying that they're the ones doing it and that women allow them to do it. So there are men in the group that are doing it, and they're acknowledging and agreeing that they're the ones that are doing it.
Wait, what did you say?
I will say, I will say to the end, I said I won't disagree. There probably are a lot of guys in the group who do have kids, but I don't want you to take everything in that group seriously, because a lot of it is trolling. And sometimes I troll too.
But see, that's my problem though. Like, y'all, like, how can we follow men if they're using platforms like this to, as what you call, troll? And then on one hand, y'all want us to listen. It's always black women don't want to listen. They don't want to hear Kevin Samuels because he's too honest. But then you're admitting to not being genuine. So
I'm saying I'm not.
How are we gonna listen to that?
At all.
Say it again.
I mean, I know sometimes Candace isn't being genuine. She's being giving somebody to ask sometimes. Like, I think we all have our points where we want to get a point across, and I think it's other times where we got something to say. And I just think men. I think the issue is men don't have a lot of spaces where they can voice how they feel. And I think they use spaces like this to just voice it without any consideration. And they're not looking for empathy. They're mostly looking for, because you got to remember, men are confrontational. So a lot of times, Raven started doing it, and she's starting to get a lot of action on those posts. But,
Yeah. And I know that a lot of women, you say women don't want to listen. There are women who want to listen, and there are women who want to understand. There are women who want to submit. but we got to call a spade, and we have to have our voice too. I think a lot of Black men feel like y'all been talking, but not all of that talk was representative of all women. Not all of it was helpful. Some of it was helpful and some of it was ignored. And so I don't think the answer is to shut us out. Like we want y'all to talk. Like I said, the ladies don't quite agree with me on this one, but I don't mind Kevin Samuels. I want to hear the Roommates podcast. I want to hear different men and what they have to say. But we gotta call out.
Therein lies our problem.
We gotta call out fallacies. And like you said, like you got on the show like about to like come at us like y'all talking about Kevin Samuels, and it's like you can't say anything.
Protect Kevin Samuels at all costs. Okay.
Like, no matter what he says,
at
like
all costs.
and not everything that all these men are saying on these podcasts are accurate or helpful. And so that's the problem. So it's like, that's why I'll speak for myself, it's hard for me to follow some of these Black men, because it's like y'all say you want us to follow, but what are we following? Are you using your platforms to spit venom, to diagnose problems, to blame, or are you using them to correct some things that are not working for us and offering solutions? And right now, I don't see that. I don't see it. So it's almost like it's always okay. Well, let me get on this show. Y'all been talking. Now it's our turn. But you should talk. But that doesn't mean every single thing you say or do is correct. And there are men in the group, thank God, who have acknowledged this. They say they like Kevin Samuels, but they can acknowledge that he's not right about everything. Kevin Samuels even acknowledged that he hasn't been right about everything. So it breaks down communication when the second a woman says something that you disagree with, especially if it came out of Kevin Samuels' mouth, you attack and say, well, you just don't want to hold nobody accountable. You just the baby mama. And that's why we going to Brazil. And you need to die alone. And you need to get a dog. It's like, how on earth are we following?
You know what? That is the response to when women say, who hurt you? You're going to die and get dog alone.
Well, we hear more than y'all. I don't know, but I hear you. I hear you, Stephen. We're gonna let you close out, but I hear you. Maybe you can call back again. Right. Maybe you can join us and we can hash out some things.
For sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. We appreciate you.
Thank
All right, Raven.
you, Stephen.
I'll see y'all in the group.
All right.
And Cannon, I didn't forget about you. All right.
Bye-bye. All right. So we do actually have some callers. I'm going to give them a chance to call in.
Like Darwin said in the group, men have not been intentional on creating the change they want, and we have a lot of power but abuse it.
Chris, thank you for joining.
Hey, peace. This is Gifted Pen from the group.
Hey.
I want to say shout out to Cannon for inviting me to watch the show, and I just thought I'd just call in and say you guys are having an awesome show. I liked it. I subscribed. Man, I hear some good things. I hear a lot of crazy things. I read a lot of crazy things in some of the group chats and stuff like that. And I think what a lot of us need is to understand. We have to understand each other. I'm talking about Black women and Black men. You know what I'm saying? Because you got gripes on both sides, and I'm talking about we got valid arguments on both sides, and you got, like you said earlier, like for instance, I tried to write down a couple things, and yes, men definitely attribute to children being born out of wedlock. It's not only the woman's fault, or they'll say, well, you know, it's her fault for allowing me to stick, you know, allowing me to have sex with her. But also at the same time, you're a part of that, regardless, because you also had the choice not to do it or not to come in and make the child. You know, and I don't know. I just see a lot of really ridiculous things being said about Black women. There's a lot of ridiculous things being said about Black men, and it needs to be some realistic things if we want to better ourselves. And I think Black unity sucks in our race. You know what I'm saying? Right now, you know what I'm saying? This is the reason why we tear each other down and we're not quick to build each other up. And like the sister said earlier on the platform, you know, you got the people calling. You said about the trolling thing. You know, I think it's kind of, you know, ridiculous to call in and troll. Like, if we want to better ourselves, then why would you call in and not call? I ain't talking about the brother. I'm just saying, just in the groups or whatever period, we was trying to slander each other or say ridiculous things that make no sense. It's not helping the cause. And that's why it's almost like the in the group is kind of like hypocritical. I see that a lot. We talk about we want to get married, we want to do all this, we want to do all that, we want women to follow, but what, like she said, what are they following?
Yeah.
You know.
I agree.
I wanted to address like what you were talking about with men and women bearing the responsibility of bringing a child into the world. I completely agree with that. I just don't understand why when people, it seems like people think that they both can't be true at the same time. Like, if I say a man is responsible for bringing a child into this world, there are men who will register that as, oh, the woman is not at fault. And that's not true. And vice versa. Just because we say a woman is responsible for allowing a man to have sex with her is not absolving the man of responsibility.
I think that it depends on who you're talking to, right? Like I always say it that way. I say, I'm not going to talk to a group full of men, or I'm not going to be talking to a man and be like, yeah, because it was the woman's that. If I'm talking to a man, we're going to talk about what your role is in it. Like, it makes no sense for you as a man to put all like, you should be discussing what your role is. For me as a woman, I should be discussing what my role is. Like, that's it. It's like I'm not gonna talk to women and be like, you know what, that was on him, girl. He ain't have to do that. Like, what? Like, no, you didn't have to do that. And if I'm talking to a man, I'm not gonna be like, you know what, she let you do it. Like, not like, you have to take accountability for your part. And that's the part that makes no sense. Like, you can't control other people. But again, in my opinion, going back to what we were talking about earlier, we have to look at how deep a lot of these threads go. Even that concept still goes back to how we view women as property, as things, as whatever. And men don't have, like, some men feel like they don't have to be accountable. Like, that's on you. You let me do this. You know?
Let me say this too. And one of the things that one of the sisters was saying, like, you know, what are we doing as men to change the situation? I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, speaking to that degree, it's hard to, as far as collectively as men, period, it's kind of hard to like to get together and hold each other accountable when we are not even united. You see what I'm saying? How are we going to communicate if we're not united as a people, number one? You see what I'm saying? It's hard to do that. So a lot of times our communication, or where we hold each other accountable, might be on social media. You know what I'm saying? Or in, you know, small family groups and things like that. But we got to be realistic. You know, what I do, you know, I'm a writer. Matter of fact, I'm working on a book, you know, right now, part 2 to my book called Inbox. And I swear to God, one of the things that I really pay attention to what y'all say, because I want to be able to apply certain things that make sense from a man's perspective, from a woman's perspective, so we can understand each other if we want to move forward as a people. But one of the things that I see that we do, we'll talk about the problem, but we never go to the root of the problem. We never do. We and the root of that, I mean, we could take the root of this problem all the way back to, you know, slavery and how this happened, and, you know, this begot this. those things are the root of the problem, and we pump so much negativity through the music, through the television, and our people are perpetuating this, and we live in this way. And our children are growing up, and they're hearing this. They become harder and harder and harder, and no love, and everything is just so cold. And we want to make things better. If we talk about marriages, and we talking about people being together, we talking about family. Excuse my, how the hell are we gonna make anything better if we sit up here protecting this bull crap?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? That we are constantly pumping to our people all day long. How?
Mm-hmm.
It ain't gonna work.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with what you said. I think we got to be careful though about not becoming too problem centered.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
I tell people it's three basic skills
Say it
to
again,
problem solving. I tell people that there's three basic skill steps to problem solving. One that we're really good at is identifying the problem, which is great. Okay, but there's one after that, and it's brainstorming some potential solutions, brainstorming some options. And I think that's where, and I'm gonna go with what you said about us not being united. We get so combative when talking about potential solutions or potential outcomes, because then you throw religion in the mix, you throw backgrounds in the mix, and then we become so divisive. Oh, he didn't grow up like me, or he don't know what he's talking about, or he thinks he knows me. We get off to it. We've got to learn how to not to get stuck on the problem and start talking about solutions. And I know for me, I am a Christian, I'm a Bible believer, but for me, and one thing that I do challenge my people to do is that sometimes the potential problem and solution gonna come from some folks who don't look like you, and it's gonna come from some people that don't have the same background as you. That doesn't make them any less right or wrong than what you are, but staying on what the particular problem is, or the particular issue. They might have an option that in the situation. Start looking past like all these big differences, and start to a thought came to mind when I do end up getting blackmails for therapy, or men in general for therapy, at that Mosley, or Miss Javonda, for because of you being a female, me even being black, you know, when they look at it at the end of the day, you set a goal, you did the work, here we are. Doesn't matter what I look like, doesn't matter what my gender is. You did the work, and I think that's how we got to start looking at some things. All these women did this and men did this, and we get it. It's there. The conversation needs to be had. But I am a solution focused person. We do need to find out what the root is. I hear you on that.
Yeah,
but I think that we need to be very careful with not becoming
you can't
problem
you
centered.
can't possibly.
Some of the stuff we bring up, yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I'm saying, and I'm with you there. It's just that
yeah. Some of these problems that we go back and forth about, they've been here. Yeah.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm saying we can't possibly find the right solution if we don't go to the root. It's almost like having a water hose and biting a hole in the water hose, and then all we do, we go put a Band-Aid on the water hose. We identify the problem that is, it's a hole in the water hose, and we just keep patching it up, and then we keep going back and talk about this same bite going through the water hose, but we never talk about what the hell is biting through the hose. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, we're gonna always have that problem if we don't go to the root of it, if we don't understand it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there was a thing. I don't know if you ever heard of Willie Lynch's theory. But this was a thing I'm talking about. It was structured to divide, to destroy the black family. You know what I'm saying? That's the negativity. That's the separation of our homes, the reasons for it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I understand that we got a lot of different things that we can address when it comes down to the Black family. But if we don't address that one particular thing, it's just gonna keep happening. You know, for real.
All right. All right. Thank you, Chris, so much for your support. Thanks for joining, and thanks for your comments.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Good stuff.
And why? Okay, I'm sorry. My husband is in here speaking straight. He say when men get together, we talk about sports. When women get together, they talk about relationships.
All right. What?
I read that. I see it.
What did he say, Cannon?
He said when men get together, we talk about sports, and when women get together, they talk about relationships.
That's kind of the little joke they make about, women care about people, men care about things.
Yeah, he said more women go to therapy voluntarily, and men have to go with court order.
Yeah, that's true, sadly. So I'm all for Black men having a voice. Like, they should have these platforms. That's great. And I hated that a large part of the 90s, well, all of the 90s and a part of the 80s, Black women were talking about all the ills of Black men. I hated that. I hated that because
I'm trying to figure out if they were just mad they were sharing dirty laundry or if they were lying on them.
It didn't represent all Black men. Now, I do believe
that's true.
that it has to be addressed, but I think that we focused heavily on that and we threw them under the bus.
When? What shows was this? Oprah did one show.
Right.
Okay, I'm not talking about in the large and mainstream media. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just in life, like even with Father's Day. And I understand why. But we let that go on too long. What
do you mean?
We claimed Father's Day as it was our own. And we constantly talked about thugs and gangbangers, and I agree. We had a lot of that, and we still have a lot of that. And Black men want to act like it didn't exist, but it did exist. I think the problem was that that's all we talked about with our Black men. And so now that's what they're doing to us. And what I can't respect is that
they've been doing this to us.
They have.
BITCHs ain't SHIT.
You're right. They have. We've always.
Dr. Dre didn't get rich off nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
It still goes back to what I'm saying. It's a continuation of the same thing. Like, even when you think about how, and oh my God, I don't want to keep bringing this mess up, but even when you think about how there is a deep-seated subconscious. Some of it is conscious and some of it is subconscious. But subconscious need to degrade, berate, put down, like women to get their comeuppance, right? To be like, you getting what you deserve. Like, I'm putting you in your place, right? That's not different. That hasn't changed. It's not shifted over time. It's just more of the same. Like, it even goes to show that the formula, right, for Kevin Samuel's show is very specific. It's like trauma porn. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I get to make myself feel better because I get to watch this person be humiliated, and I'm used to seeing this person be humiliated, and it makes me feel better. Right? That's not new.
That's what I was going to say.
That's like one of the stands from Fresh and Fit. They were openly talking about how they sent hate mail to women because they basically got off on it. We love to see Fresh and Fit kick a woman out. Why? Why is that the highlight of your day?
And I've seen it on social media. It's entertaining. They love it. It's redeeming.
But that goes back to,
these men have been rejected by women, and it's redeeming to them. But that's what I was going to say. Black men feel like Black women threw them under the bus. Whether you think they had a reason to or not, who cares?
But they could feel like that, but that ain't reality.
And now
how we gonna say we was ride or dies? No, now we being convoluted and not making no sense. How we gonna say during these times we was ride or dies? Miss JoJo just stood up here and said when she was in those institutions, who it was sitting in there. Right? How we gonna say that on the one hand and then be like, you threw up? That's
You
a
should have said nothing about it. You should have shut your black mouth. That's what you should have did.
But I'm talking about the public image of black men. That's what I'm talking about. We were ride or die, but I'm talking about how we helped even just a decade ago. And this didn't represent all black women, but a lot of black women joined the bandwagon when those 3 women got it. There were only 3 women, okay? And it was really magnified, like every black woman thought this way. But those 3 women that went on that ABC special and said there are no good black men, they're all in jail. Come on now. Y'all have heard that too. Now I'm gonna be fair on both sides. I know that black women we've been through some stuff with black men, but we did perpetuate this narrative that they were liars, cheaters, deadbeats, and a whole lot of them were.
We perpetuated or we talked about our experiences.
You just got the phone talking about Pookies and Ray Rays. What? They perpetuated on there.
But what I'm saying is they're doing the same thing. Like,
no, they're not doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing that they've been doing. They aren't doing anything different. They aren't reacting to us and saying now we're talking about our experiences. No, we're trying to put you in your place. Get back to where you belong. Okay, listen to me. I'm above you. Submit to me. Okay, you're below me. You listen. You're gonna get back in your place. I don't like that you're trying to jump up out your place. Get back over there. That is not the same thing. When have women been running around here telling black men they need to get back in their place and take pleasure from watching black men be degraded on a large scale? That does not. That's not the same thing.
No, that has never happened. I completely agree.
That's why I say it's not the same
not a real thing.
Like because there were some black women somewhere who talked about their experiences in a certain way that somehow translated to, oh, we were doing this. Like, no, that did not happen.
Well, you don't think that it was a real thing when black women were talking about there are no good black men?
When did this?
I think that there were women who talked about that. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's not a real thing to say that there were women who were speaking about what their experiences were, right? And I think that was their real experience. That's how they felt. That's what they believed. I don't think that it was we're trying to put black men in their place or we're trying to degrade black men or we're trying. I think that there is a difference between some like and then I mean it has to be a whole nother conversation on what gets elevated in the media because we don't own none of it. But fine, whatever. But what I'm saying is that that's still different. Like if somebody comes to me and asks me about my experience, I'm gonna say what my experience is, and that's and that's what it is.
But didn't a lot of black women perpetuate that?
No,
if they had the same experience, then who are they supposed to lie? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's what I'm saying.
Reputation might not be more important than the truth. We can't be trying to protect men's reputation and then lie at the same time because you create more victims.
Let me interject.
It's one or the other. We ready, Mr.
Right. I want to say this. I think I think we need to manage our expectations for people in general. I know I do. I always manage my expectations, but the older I get, I am managing my expectations. I think this idea that every time a black man or a black woman speaks out on something negative that is going on in our race, this whole perpetuate, this image. I always tell people that some of these images, like we said, some of these women had some real experiences with these men, and some of these had some real experience with some of these women. And I get it, and I understand it. I get it. I'm not minimizing your personal experience.
Take away from either one.
However, there has to be some level of accountability. I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier, and I think one of you guys just pointed it out. When I worked behind the walls, I didn't see a lot of black men coming to visit incarcerated black men. I saw a lot of black women coming to see incarcerated black men. That's what I saw. Okay, I think that this idea that perpetuated something, it starts with behavior. And it starts with how people think about certain things. People who sold drugs, their leading thought, and what I hear often with the line of work that I do is my thought and belief behind that is I need to do this to support my family. Well, then when we challenge that thought, don't we know that there are other things that they can do to support and really be there for their family? What I'm about to say is kind of cliche, but I'm going to say it. There is some difficult conversations that need to be had, but there is a level of accountability. When the women went on that special, and if I'm thinking correctly, I think I know what special you're talking about. When those women went on that special, they were talking about their personal experiences. But like media does, they blow it up to, oh,
They
well, this is
magnified
what
it.
it is. We see that with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and like what Candace said, most of these platforms we don't own them, so and that's a whole nother topic. But I think there's a level of accountability on both sides that needs to be discussed and reinforced. Um, we're not making babies by ourselves. We are black men are not they're not getting locked up or put into prison because they are black and because they are men. We got to start promoting accountability on both sides. That's all I wanted to say. If we really gonna get to solution focused discussion, we got to start promoting accountability on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I see somebody in the comments saying there's delusion on both sides. I don't think it's delusion. I think people just see what they want to see. And like I
Accountability.
said before on the show, you know, yeah, there has to be that. And then, like I said before, when you start to see yourself for who you really are, it hurts. It hurts a lot. So what do? I deflect. I deflect. Going back to what we talked about with these rejected men, when I realized that, let's say 7 out of the 10 women that I've asked out in the past X amount of months or whatever, they're rejecting me, and they're doing it harshly, it hurts. And now the reality of it is I'm the common denominator. But see, in order for a person to get there, they got to build self accountability. That maybe something going on with me. That's what on the men's side. And for the women, in terms of accountability, I do think we need to hold each other accountable to a certain extent, but I think it just needs to be more so through action and being an example and being the change that you want to see. That's my take on it. We can talk about all day what we're not doing and what we are doing. What are we doing though? And who is in your circle and who are you paying attention to? So that's my take on it. I think that these media. I don't take media seriously no more. Like the day I got a Facebook account, I start anything I see on the television or a computer, it just became comical to me. Because we use this. This is our therapy. This is our sounding board. This is, it's all these things. If you think about anything running in your house and what you do on a day-to-day basis, it's all linked to computers, phones, media. I take it seriously, but I don't. You know, it's all we got to change the way we think about certain things, and that's what I'm going to end with
Well, I think that a
as
lot
it
of
relates to what we've been discussing.
yeah, thank you. And I love that you're a therapist. And even though you two ladies, Raven and Javonda, are not therapists, I think that you have an appreciation for healing. And I appreciate that because what we're seeing on social media, on YouTube, well, I consider YouTube to be social media as well, but on the Clubhouse apps, in all of these public spaces are hurting men and they don't like to hear it because there are women who kind of use that as an insult, and they misplace that term, oh, you're hurt. But a lot of times it is what we're seeing is a result of hurt,
Mm-hmm.
and I see it
It is,
play
and
out.
scarring
I see it
and
play out with
pain.
children that I know. A lot of times these men are first hurt by
Mm-hmm.
their mothers, and they see things in their environment. They see a lot of dysfunction. They see the girl that didn't treat them right. They see the girl who lied that the baby was his and it wasn't. They see all these things. They've made bad choices, and this is how they see Black women now. And now I'm going to use this platform to tell Black women, y'all ain't nothing, versus healing from what you and reflecting on your choices and how you got into those situations and why you continue to stay in those situations. So it's real. So, I think we kind of disagree about Black women and kind of what we've done on like years ago. And I agree that Black men have always been throwing us under the bus. And I can find old footage and books about how Black men and magazines. I have them saved on my drive, and that I can share at another time of how Black women Black men have always deemed us less desirable. Okay, even back in the 60s and 50s. I think it was Jet magazine had a whole 2 double page cover about Black men going to Japan to find more submissive wives. This was in the 1950s. So they've always done it. And I agree. But unfortunately, now we do have this influx of Black men who are using social media because they can't get on ABC News, and on the OWN network or on Fox News talking about Black women the way that they do. And they're doing it because they're hurt and they haven't healed.
But I guess my question is, can you give me a time that has not been the case? What I'm saying is we just had this entire conversation about how culturally across the world, right? Not just even in the United States, not just even in our Black communities, but that there is a lot of misogyny, that there is a lot of machismo, right? That there is a degradation or a dehumanizing of women in general. So I just don't know how we jump from that to then running with the narrative that Black women have somehow been doing all of these things to Black, and as they turn, like I just see a continuation of the same behaviors. And like you said, I see that now people do have an opportunity to get into these echo chambers, and I feel like it's even more magnified because we do have to think about the social media algorithms, right? Those do have a real effect on people, because once you start looking up certain things or talking about certain things, your phone gonna show you that all the time. So a lot of people do go down those rabbit holes and get, like I said, get into those echo chambers, and they're just regurgitating things. They're not using critical thinking. They just repeating things that they heard, right, off social media. And that's why I say we have to be careful with some of these narratives, because I just need the evidence, and the evidence is just not there. Like the narrative to say, well, now it's our turn to treat you. No, this is not new. This is not new. This is, you're doing the same thing you've always done. It's like I said before, it's like the same reaction how we talk about the when they stormed the Capitol, right? What is the whole conversation about? This is like a bunch of white men or white people, whatever, who are feeling some type of way about the privileges that they're losing, about white supremacy being addressed, you know what I mean? And they're like, no, we can't let this. It's like the same thing. It's like feeling some type of way, like, what you mean you finished? No, get back on. Now I gotta really go hard. I gotta really try to get you back into your place. I gotta really show you that you're not anything. Like what do you mean? Like, no, I'm about to go real hard. And they think it's new. That's what I'm saying. It's not new. You're just doing the same thing.
It's not new. It's not new. But just because Black men have been doing it doesn't mean Black women haven't either. I think they've done it to a greater degree. We saw it in videos, music videos, rap songs. We saw it in movies. We saw it everywhere. But
let me tell you something that's happening by and large.
It's very, very real. But I wouldn't be fair if I sat here and said that we as Black women didn't also kind of do some things that we should not have done.
No, you have to look at a power dynamic. You always have to look at the power dynamic, and you always have to understand reaction versus action, period, right? Think about one of the things that you said when you were talking about, I watch this podcast and I watch this person and I watch that person and this, that, and the other. You're watching because you are still trying to figure out ways to be like, well, let me hear what they have to say. Let me listen. Let me see. Let me try to see if I can find some common ground. Women are way more likely to do things like that than the other way around. Period. Yeah. So what I'm saying is you can't just say all things being equal. What is one of the main things that they always say? You don't have to care about what a woman thinks or how she feels. Like you just got to be on your purpose, and she got to get with your program,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to care anything about that. That's just a continuation of dehumanizing conversation. Like what you as a person is non-consequential. You're only important as much as what you can do for me. That's the only value that you have. You don't have no value human as a person outside of what you can do for me. That's what that says. And what I'm saying is that that's our that's not new. And I'm not just saying it's Black culture. I'm saying it's culture in general. And what I think you see even more so is, like I say, those echo chambers and people getting radicalized. And that's the danger, and that's the problem. You know what I mean? Like it's not just, oh, we just having these conversations. No, it's different, because even if you see women having certain conversations or whatever, there has not been an influx of women being violent against men. That's just not the case. But a lot of these conversations and a lot of these things can definitely lead to violence against women. Absolutely.
But I think the other big issue is that people often make their feelings facts, and that's a problem. That's a barrier. That's a big barrier. Just because you feel a certain way about something or you get emotional about certain things doesn't make it a fact. We got to start really separating feelings from what is actually reality and what's actually facts. I think that we sometimes make how we feel, okay, this is what it is. And what it is that you're having an emotional reaction. Kind of like our first story that we just covered. This guy, if I had to, and I don't want to make assumptions, but let's look at the situation. Girl turns him down, and then she turns him dead. Let's look at potential thought processes behind this situation. Well, because she rejected me, then she don't deserve to be here. You know, and how many times has he had that thought? You know, how many men out there like him still have that thought? You know, and on the flip side with women, well, I had this one bad marriage and this husband beat me or he was abusive or whatever. So now I've developed this feeling of, caution and apprehension towards men because in my thinking, at some point, I think he's going to hurt me. I think a lot of times just making your feelings facts is a really big barrier to really having the kind of reality, the facts that need to be presented in these types of conversations. We got to separate what's real and how we feel, because something may happen to me, and something may happen to Ken in the same situation. She may have a different emotional reaction than what I have. I'm not discounting what she felt, and she may not discount what I'm feeling, but somehow or another, we're going to have to figure out, okay, what actually happened? What was the reality? What are the facts? And I think with some of these men online who are becoming these sounding boards saying that they want to embarrass women or we want to hold women accountable, it's you're trying to make how you feel about women via past experiences facts about all women. And that's a problem. And it's very problematic. And just because women have done that in the past, possibly to men or black men, as my grandmother would say, two rights never made a wrong, but it does feel good. But we got to get past that. I want to feel good and I want that vengeance to what's really real. What are the facts? I know how you feel, but what are the facts?
Yeah. And there just has to be, I think, better leadership. As a leader, you can't just blame. If that's how you're approaching things, who will follow you? I mean, I've seen it play out in my life, and I'm sure other people have too. And there's research about leadership. Leaders are not dictators. There's a difference between a leader and a dictator. Leaders have a certain set of skills, and one of those skills is self accountability. One of them is another is problem solving, and it tends not to veer on the side of shaming. Okay, that's not how you affect change. And unfortunately, what we're seeing from these, I don't know what they call them, blue pill or something, or manosphere, that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing demonstrations of leadership. Now, I think it's great that they are voicing some opinions and some concerns. But what's problematic is that they're trying to put us into a box, as though women, Black people in general, haven't already been put into boxes. You know, like everybody ain't, you know, a crazy baby mama that, you know, is toxic, and, you know, like they want to say this is Black women, and Black women come in all varieties. And at some point, you have to look at yourself and say, because a man tell you in a heartbeat, you know, well, you choosing wrong. You ain't attracting the right man. But for some reason, they don't see that when it's them. And so these very same men are getting on these YouTube platforms, speaking to other men. And like Cannon said, they're now becoming radicalized. And they're just on the far opposite end of the spectrum. And it's not leading to like real solutions. It's only leading to more discord and division.
Well,
right.
you know, we're here for the solution. I'm here for the healing. So,
Yes.
Yep.
All right, Cannon, you want to close us out? It's getting late, y'all. We had a good one.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good show. We had some good callers that called in. I think that the chat was lit. You know, people brought some very good opinions to it.
Yeah.
I just think that moving forward, we should be able to go a little bit more in depth on some of these topics. But I think in closing, we really need to make sure that these narratives are based in reality and have actual facts to back them up. And going back to what Miss Jovo said, is that we don't want to rewrite history based on feelings, right? And just like create these narratives based on feelings. So let's just make sure that we have the actual facts on these conversations. And I'm just glad that we were able to talk about them in a more thoughtful way. And I just think going forward, that's probably the best thing to do to combat some of these falsehoods and narratives.
And then we have to remember perception. People like to say perception is fact, but I don't believe perception is fact. I think it's relevant and it's valid, but perception is not fact. And we have to distinguish between what actually happened and then what we perceive to happen. And I think that, you know, we brought up some things that can be discussed later, and we can go into more depth about, you know, our history, the history of the relationship that Black men and Black women have. You know, what has it been really? That's the good question. And yeah, that's a great question to have. But I appreciate y'all so much. I feel like even through this discourse, you know, and with the people calling in, we've had discourse, and it's a start. It's, you know, it's a journey. It's not going to be settled overnight. And I think that Black men and Black women have to kind of remember that adage, that old adage, don't, and principle from the Bible that says, don't let the sun go down when you're mad, you know, and don't let discord, you know, don't go to sleep with discord in your family. That's how I grew up. And I hope that that's how Black men and Black women see this. Like, this conversation is one of millions that we've been having. And it's like, we're not quite there, but we're getting there, I believe. And we just have to stay committed, stay in the battle to, you know, to make it work.
We'll be back next week.
Exactly.
All right. Good night.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good night.
Y'all have a great night.
All right. Bye-bye.